All right. Bon après-midi, tout le monde. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this Committee of the Whole. I'd like to call the meeting to order.
Your Worship, we have an agenda before us, and there are no changes.
Excellent. Is there someone who wishes to move the adoption of the agenda? Thank you, Councillor Legier, seconded by Councillor Richard. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
There are no minutes for approval. Next would be the declaration of conflict of interest et déclaration des conflits d'intérêts.
I don't see any. I think we're good.
Okay, so now we're on to new business, les affaires nouvelles. And today we have an update from the Royal Canadian Legion Branch Number 6 and Danse Encore 2024 grant reporting. And to introduce this will be Isabelle LeBlanc.
Ça fonctionne? Bon, on va s'habituer. Alors, Madame la Mairesse, membre du Conseil, good afternoon. So you will likely recall that in 2024, we allocated some funds to the Legion for some additional seniors programming to help us fill some of the void. There were two instances. So the first allocation was for an amount of $49,000 for the Legion for seniors programming that ran from February to August. Subsequent to that, we also allocated a second amount to the Legion later in the fall, so in September, in the amount of $28,000. But we also added an amount of $20,000 to Danse Encore pour ajouter et améliorer la programmation offerte aux aînés du côté francophone. During the 2025 budget deliberations, it was asked that the grant budget be increased by $134,000, of which $77,000 would go towards the Legion and $57,000 would go towards Danse Encore for some programming in 2025. Added to this, Council had asked that both organizations come before Council to present how they had spent their 2024 funds and also what they plan on doing with their 2025 amounts. Should that be to Council's satisfaction, the funds would then be released. Important to note that this is to be funded from the 2024 Council contingency budget. So, today, we're really happy to have both organizations here. Nous avons avec nous Bob Dupuis de la Légion canadienne, branche numéro 6, et Chantal Cadieux, la directrice artistique de Danse Encore. Both are here. I'm not sure whose presentation is teed up first.
It looks like Danse Encore. Is that
So,
first?
in addition to this, as Chantal or Estelle is getting ready, in your package, you will see a more detailed report that explains in much more detail, in addition to the presentation that they are going to be making.
Excellent. Bienvenue. Juste pousser sur le micro. Il y a un bouton. Oui, merci.
1, 2, oui. Bonjour tout le monde. Belle journée d'hiver ensoleillée. Contente d'être ici. Chantal Cadieux, directrice artistique et fondatrice de Danse Encore en 1979. Donc, je fais partie de mon groupe d'aînés. Contente de présenter notre programme qu'on a commencé cet automne. Et puis, j'aimerais vous dire que je suis née à Moncton, je vis à Moncton, puis je danse à Moncton. Puis, je vais vous présenter Estelle Dupuis, qui est mon adjointe, et elle va prendre la parole.
Merci. Alors, on est vraiment content d'être ici cet après-midi. On veut vraiment remercier la Ville de nous recevoir. On veut aussi, je vais le dire tout de suite, de remercier Monica puis Ellen qui nous ont aidés avec toutes les démarches d'ici pour la mise en place du projet des années qui est vraiment un succès. Puis, moi, je travaille à Danse Encore en communication, marketing, puis engagement communautaire. Fait que ça, c'est les dossiers que je suis dessus. Fait que c'est ça, on va rapidement vous parler de notre programme pour les années. qui vise vraiment l'activité physique puis l'engagement social des aînés dans notre communauté. OK, fait qu'on va faire un retour rapide sur la programmation de 2024. On a lancé la programmation le 1er octobre 2024. C'était la Journée internationale des aînés. Fait qu'on a lancé ça cette journée-là. La ville aussi avait plusieurs activités. Fait qu'on a tout concordé ça ensemble. Nous, on avait un gâteau. On a essayé de rendre ça excitant pour que les gens viennent. Il y a plusieurs personnes qui se sont déplacées. On avait un cours de danse en ligne. Puis on a commencé à avoir quelques inscriptions. Notre programme, à ce moment-là, consistait de 3 cours semaine. Il y avait le placement du corps, le yoga sur chaise, la danse-thérapie, puis la danse en ligne. Puis on faisait une rotation des cours. Puis rapidement, puis surtout avec le bouche à oreille, fait que sur notre formulaire d'inscription, on a demandé comment les gens ont appris à propos du programme. Puis c'était du bouche à oreille en grande majorité. Fait qu'on a fini nos 3 mois de première session avec plus de 60 inscriptions qui viennent régulièrement prendre des cours avec nous dans un corps au centre culturel. Puis, ce qui implique qu'on a enseigné à peu près 40 cours de mouvement durant ces 3 mois-là d'activité. Les cours sont bilingues, mais desservent surtout la population francophone de Moncton. Nos profs sont toutes bilingues, les formulaires d'inscription sont bilingues, mais on a beaucoup de commentaires des gens de la communauté qui nous disent avoir finalement trouvé une place où la culture et l'environnement est francophone, puis qui se sentent vraiment accueillis. C'est aussi au Centre culturel Aberdeen, les studios de danse encore, fait que c'est un environnement très, très francophone, bien qu'on invite tout le monde, puis on a vraiment une diversité de gens qui participent aux activités. On a mis en place une boîte de suggestions à la disposition des aînés. Puis on a eu plusieurs belles suggestions qui ont rentré. Puis on essaie déjà pour la prochaine session de les mettre en application. Durant ces suggestions-là, il y a eu de faire des discussions, de lancer des sujets de discussion pour parler ensemble. Fait qu'on a fait ça à quelques reprises. Il y a aussi eu l'activité d'emballage des cadeaux de Noël qui avait été proposée, qui a été vraiment un succès. Je vais vous montrer. Juste au milieu ici, il y a une photo. Les gens ont apporté des cadeaux. Puis on les a toutes comme emballés ensemble. On avait mis de la musique de Noël. Il y a des gens qui ont spontanément apporté des desserts de Noël. C'était vraiment agréable. Puis après ça, on a donné les cadeaux emballés pour les jeunes c'était au Moncton Head Start. Ça fait que c'est une belle activité qui s'est passée. Vous voyez aussi 2 autres photos. Il y a une photo qui est Roxane qui est en train d'enseigner un cours de danse en ligne. Fait qu'on voit que les gens sont bien en mouvement en studio. Puis l'autre photo, c'est Chantal en train d'enseigner un des cours de placement du corps. Puis vous voyez avec les positions, tu sais, il y a des gens de 80 ans ici, là, fait qu'ils sont vraiment en train de bouger dans l'espace, puis à avoir du plaisir, mais aussi à être en mouvement quand même. Puis souvent, ils se dépassent eux-mêmes. Là, c'est vraiment le fun à voir. Ici, on a des photos du yoga sur chaise, qui est très populaire. On a notre professeure ici, Vanessa, en train d'enseigner. Puis les cours sont tout le temps remplis. Notre maximum est comme 25 personnes. Des fois, on ajoute une coupe de chaises, là, s'il y a du monde qui arrive dernière minute, mais ça fonctionne très bien, ça aussi. On a été vraiment chanceux de formuler un partenariat avec le Théâtre de l'Escaouette par rapport au stationnement, parce que vous savez probablement qu'au Centre Aberdeen, il n'y a pas beaucoup de stationnement. Puis pour les années, pour être accessible, c'était quelque chose qui revenait beaucoup. Alors, on a approché le Théâtre de l'Escaouette qui a offert, ensemble, on a fait des passes de stationnement que les gens mettent dans leur pare-brise. Puis, ils peuvent aller se stationner là durant le temps qu'ils viennent au centre. Puis eux, leur stationnement n'est pas très occupé à ce moment-là de la journée. Fait que ça faisait une très belle collaboration qui va continuer pour 2025, pour la prochaine session. Fait qu'on est vraiment content de ce partenariat-là. Maintenant, pour 2025, on a déjà commencé notre session d'hiver. Puis, on a ajouté même un cours à la demande générale. Le cours de yoga sur chaise était tellement populaire qu'il y en a maintenant 2 par semaine. On a donc 3 sessions, une de printemps, une d'hiver qui est en cours tout de suite, une pour le printemps et une à l'automne. Puis, on a maintenant donc 4 cours semaine. On a encore les mêmes cours tout de suite à l'oral. Les gens aimaient ces cours-là, mais on va potentiellement ajouter ou modifier à la prochaine session pour un cours de méditation guidée qui a été suggéré dans notre boîte de suggestions plusieurs fois. Fait qu'on essaie de rester ouvert à modifier selon les intérêts et les besoins des gens. Fait qu'à la fin de cette année 2025, on aurait enseigné 120 cours de mouvement, en plus d'offrir de l'espace social pour que les gens puissent discuter, faire des jeux de société ou avoir organiser des événements ou des activités planifiées comme on planifie faire des ateliers de nutrition. Puis ça, c'est eux qui nous ont demandé là, sur la nutrition, sur comment comme être plus abordable avec son épicerie. Aussi, comment installer Facebook sur leur tablette. Ça a été beaucoup demandé. Aussi sur la fraude par téléphone ou par Internet. Fait que des cliniques, puis on ferait des partenariats avec d'autres membres de la communauté pour pouvoir les informer de ces choses-là. Aussi, un club de lecture a été mentionné. Son entraide comme travailler à aider à mettre en place ces activités-là. Voilà. Là, j'ai 2 petites vidéos. Je sais pas si... faut voir. Il y a des gens qui chantent aussi. Ça devient rapidement une chorale. C'est ça. Fait que ça, c'était un des cours de danse en ligne. Puis là, ici, c'est le placement du corps. J'ai vraiment juste des petits extraits. Là. Je voulais pas gêner les gens en prenant des vidéos. Mais vous voyez, c'est vraiment apprécié. Puis c'est vraiment le fun, là, l'environnement. OK, super. On a eu beaucoup de témoignages. Les gens voulaient nous dire comment ils aimaient le programme. On est comme, OK. Fait qu'il y a eu beaucoup de témoignages qui ont été envoyés, je pense, à Monica, à plusieurs personnes. Ça, c'en est un ici. C'est une femme qui dit qu'elle veut vraiment rester à sa maison, puis elle a 80 ans, puis avoir accès à du mouvement, ça aide à rester autonome. On a eu aussi des très beaux témoignages de gens qui nous ont dit qu'ils avaient beaucoup de dépression puis d'isolement, puis qui se sont présentés au début un peu timides, puis pas trop sûrs, puis qu'après s'avoir inscrit, puis avoir commencé à participer au cours, qu'ils ont arrêté de pleurer. Puis il y a une dame qui a dit ça devant le groupe, il y avait comme 4-5 personnes. Puis il y a 3 autres personnes qui ont dit « Ah, wow, moi aussi, j'ai pas pleuré depuis que j'ai commencé les cours. » Et là, on était comme « Wow! » Fait qu'on est dans l'activité physique, oui, mais on est aussi dans l'isolement social que les années vivent, puis qu'on entend beaucoup à propos de. Là, on voit une directe application, que ça les aide, puis qu'il y a un sentiment de communauté, puis qu'ils communiquent aussi. En tout cas, c'est vraiment beau à voir. Il y a aussi une dame qui... Elle avait comme sa main était comme plus vraiment mobile. Elle pouvait pas écrire son nom, elle pouvait pas remplir son formulaire d'inscription quand elle est venue la première fois. On l'a aidée. Là, maintenant, elle porte plus son brace. Elle a retrouvé la mobilité de sa main. Elle me disait, « Oh, I can brush my hair now. I can... » Comme ça, son autonomie a été regagnée. Puis juste sa confiance en elle, sa manière de se peigner a changé la manière qu'elle vient aux activités. Puis ça, c'est une des personnes qui a commencé dès le début, fait que juste à faire 3 mois d'activité physique puis d'être encadrée. Puis c'est une unilingue anglophone, puis tout va bien. Puis en tout cas, fait qu'on a eu plein de témoignages comme ça. C'est vraiment wholesome, là. C'est vraiment le fun. Puis ça témoigne vraiment oui, du besoin, mais aussi ça témoigne de comment l'activité physique met un encadrement social ensemble. Puis vraiment, c'est vraiment magique. Puis l'impact communautaire est vraiment important. Puis il y a aussi la dimension intergénérationnelle qu'on voulait souligner. On enseigne des cours aux tout petits des garderies. Puis ça donne que quand les aînés commencent leur cours, puis quand les petits finissent, ça se croise tout dans le corridor. Puis il y en a que c'est les grands-mères puis les grands-pères. Puis là, ça se donne des cols. Puis là, les autres personnes voient ça. C'est tellement comme... Tu pourrais venir t'asseoir, juste regarder, là. Puis c'est vraiment magique. Puis ça se reproduit à chaque semaine, là. Ça fait que c'est vraiment le fun. Là, on est rendu à 80 inscriptions. Tous les cours sont pleins déjà à l'avance. On prend les inscriptions une fois par semaine pour maximiser le nombre de gens qui peuvent les prendre. Fait qu'on a comme une centaine d'années au centre à toutes les semaines. Plus on a des listes d'attente, puis les gens viennent, puis s'ils peuvent rentrer, ils rentrent. Sinon, ils hang out. Fait que c'est vraiment le fun. Ils vont manger au brume après. C'est vraiment... Ça fonctionne très bien. Je pense que c'est tout ce qu'on avait de préparé. On serait content d'avoir vos questions si vous en avez. Je sais pas si j'ai oublié quelque chose. Non. J'espère que j'ai pas parlé trop vite, mais on avait juste 5 minutes, puis j'avais beaucoup de choses à dire. Ça.
Non, merci beaucoup. C'était excellent. Le conseiller bourgeois.
Est-ce qu'on pose les questions à chacun des groupes individuellement?
Oui, on peut Vas-y.
OK. J'ai juste une question. Est-ce que j'ai pas vu, puis peut-être que c'est moi qui a manqué, mais est-ce que vous chargez aux participantes?
Non, ça c'est entièrement gratuit. Ce qui a été beaucoup souligné par les années, ceux qui n'ont pas les moyens en profitent vraiment. Ils nous ont dit, comme moi, je pourrais pas, sur mon temps d'argent que j'ai par mois, faire ceci. Ça, c'est vraiment important. On a eu des gens il y a du monde qui savait qu'on venait vous parler. Fait que, dites que ça, c'est important. Là. Fait que ça, l'élément gratuit est important dans la formule. Je pense que c'est vraiment gagnant. Mais aussi, j'avoue que ça simplifie du côté d'organisation, là, comme des frais d'inscription puis tout ça. Là, c'est comme, tu viens, c'est gratuit.
OK.
Ouais.
Je vais poser une question maintenant à Mme Leblanc. Est-ce qu'il y a d'autres subventions de la Ville de Moncton comparables à ce qu'on fait? Puis je ne sais pas si la Légion charge, je vais lui poser la même question dans une minute, là. Mais est-ce qu'on subventionne des groupes, sport, art, culture, la programmation au Capitole, par exemple, qui ne chargent pas de frais aux participantes?
Vous avouez que je connais pas tous les programmes par cœur encore, compte tenu que c'est un cours laps de temps, mais Monica, à ma connaissance, je crois qu'il y en a certains d'autres, mais Monica est probablement à ce point-ci un peu mieux placée que moi.
La plupart des groupes qu'on fait partenariat avec, on essaye de minimiser les coûts le plus possible parce que si on va donner une subvention, on veut s'assurer que les coûts soient quand même minimisés. Je dirais que la plupart des groupes, il y a quand même un coût, par exemple. Donc, ceci, c'est un peu unique, mais je pense que c'était un peu qu'est-ce qu'on cherchait à faire aussi. Surtout pour les aînés, on a le commentaire souvent. Auprès des jeunes, souvent, on a des politiques qui réduit les coûts, puis tout ça, mais au programme des aînés, on n'a pas nécessairement un programme qui peut aider avec ce genre de choses. Mais je dirais que la plupart des groupes qu'on fait partenariat avec, il y a quand même un petit coût.
Moi, c'est la première fois que j'entends, puis ça fait 15 ans que je suis ici, mais moins 5 de le mi-temps de ça. Mais c'est la première fois que j'en entends parler, puis là, je vais vous retourner la question. Là, je sais que la réponse sera probablement non, là, mais est-ce que ça serait possible de charger, même si c'est une pièce, le cours ou quelque chose comme ça? Là, je ne sais pas quelle différence que ça ferait là, dans une année.
Bien, c'est la gestion de ça, parce que même au début de l'entente, on avait dit, nous, on va s'occuper de la programmation, de la pensée, de la réfléchir, avoir les bonnes personnes pour enseigner ce groupe d'âge-là. Mais on ne fait pas les inscriptions. Puis la Ville dit, OK, nous, on va faire ça. Finalement, c'est comme pas possible pour la Ville, en ce moment ici, avec la façon que la structure est faite, dans le site Web, etc., pour qu'un aîné puisse s'inscrire. Moi, je me suis inscrit moi-même, mais ça aboutit pas nulle part. Alors, je m'inscris, l'argent va à qui? va à Danse encore pour gérer un nombre d'inscriptions. Est-ce que ces gens-là vont revenir sur une base quotidienne ou annuelle, ou est-ce qu'ils deviennent membres de la compagnie Les Productions Danse encore à même titre que nos membres qui sont des membres de l'institution, parce que c'est un organisme à but non lucratif. Fait qu'on a des membres, puis on a un CA, puis tout ça. So, comment est-ce qu'on fait ceci? Par ailleurs, on a des cours de danse qui sont offerts au loisir, puis les parents payent une cotisation, mais c'est pour un cours, une session de cours. C'est pas pour être membre, c'est une inscription. Fait qu'avec tout ça, c'était comme beaucoup plus simple. Puis de toute façon, c'est beaucoup plus démocratique de faire ça comme ça. Puis là, il n'y a pas de discrimination, peu importe la bourse. Ce qui ne veut pas dire que les années qui veulent contribuer pourraient contribuer éventuellement, mais il faut trouver la formule, comment ça se fait. Mais c'est pour ça que ça fonctionne, puis il y a vraiment, on maximise vraiment l'utilité de votre subvention parce que c'est accessible à tout le monde. Ça permet à développer aussi le concept, à essayer de voir comment on fait, parce qu'on a été obligé de faire toute une stratégie d'inscription. L'employé au bureau, Gabriel, passe 3 heures par jour là-dessus maintenant. Parce que les gens téléphonent, laissent des messages, envoient des courriels, réservent leur place, viennent pas, s'absentent. On est en train de suivre, puis ça, c'est quotidiennement. Fait que nous, au début, c'était juste comme, on va donner les cours, puis on va mettre le studio propre à ça, on va garder l'entretien, tout ça, puis d'un coup, whoop là, c'est une plus grosse gestion qu'on pensait. On en a parlé avec l'équipe, puis on va voir comment on fait. Mais avec le financement qu'on a tout de suite, tout le monde peut vraiment bien en profiter. Puis nous, on peut gérer cette somme-là pour payer l'entretien puis les personnes responsables de donner la formation.
Merci. Merci, Madame la maire.
Isabelle.
Je voudrais peut-être renchérir sur ce que Chantal a partagé. On a maintenant, comme vous le savez, une personne dédiée aux aînés et à la jeunesse, donc Ellen Jeffries, et je pense que ça fait partie de sa réflexion. C'est comment est-ce qu'on est capable d'offrir une programmation, qu'est-ce qui peut fonctionner, comment on planifie tout ça afin que les aînés soient bien desservis. Évidemment, elle est là depuis 7 semaines, 8 semaines. On est en plein processus de participation publique au niveau de connaître ce que les gens veulent avoir, veulent recevoir comme service. Donc, ça fait partie justement de sa réflexion. Je pense que c'est un beau projet pilote de pouvoir l'essayer avec Danse encore, voir comment ça fonctionne, quelles sont les barrières, et à partir de ce moment-là, on va être capable de planifier l'avenir maintenant, non seulement possiblement pour Danse encore, mais pour d'autres aussi.
Conseiller Richard.
Merci, Madame la maire. Merci pour votre présentation. Le petit vidéo qui dénonçait, j'ai dit à ma collègue, j'ai dit ça serait pour le temps à ma piste, ça serait right on. Ça, c'est juste un commentaire. Je pensais à la façon dont vous avez décrit ça. Il y en a qui ont été là pour l'aspect physique, mais qui ont gagné le social. Puis il y en a probablement qui ont été juste pour le social, puis qui ont gagné le côté physique. So win-win vraiment. L'autre chose que je pouvais voir, les grands-parents puis les jeunes se rencontrer puis se croiser puis se donner des cols puis ça m'a donné une grosse chaleur. So, j'ai vraiment apprécié ça. So, merci pour votre présentation.
Merci beaucoup. Puis justement, il y a une femme qui a dit à Chantal que elle avait, son mari était décédé puis ils n'ont pas eu d'enfants, mais qu'elle aimerait des enfants. Elle dit, mais je peux pas aller m'asseoir dans un parc puis regarder des enfants comme c'est creepy, je réalise je peux pas faire ça. But là, j'ai comme le droit d'être ici, so elle vient un petit peu plus tôt puis elle regarde le cours puis elle regarde les jeunes. Puis c'est une petite madame right cute, tu sais, comme, but pour elle, c'est assez significatif de pouvoir être around d'autres jeunes, d'autres petits-enfants, surtout, là, dans ce cas-là. So, oui, ça aussi, sur l'environnement dans lequel le service est offert est also vraiment important. Puis ça, on le réalise comme le fait qu'on est dedans, là, on n'avait pas vraiment anticipé ça à ce point-là. Mais oui, c'est vraiment beau. Yeah.
L'importance de les avoir ensemble.
Oui, et puis on sait que c'est des
Comme
valeurs.
toutes les deux, là. Ouais.
On sait que l'intergénérationnel, on l'entend tout le temps, que c'est vraiment important. Ben, c'est comme, OK, comment que ça se produit? Puis on lit ces choses-là, on voit ces rapports-là. Ben, de le voir en pratique, de voir la recommandation devant toi, puis voir les bienfaits que ça a sur autant de gens, c'est vraiment le fun. J'aimerais que tout le monde pourrait venir le witnesser. Il faut vraiment l'apprécier. Ouais.
Non, c'est vraiment cool. Merci beaucoup.
La mairesse adjointe, Thériault. Oh, poussez encore. Oui, voilà.
Merci, Madame la maire. Merci beaucoup, Chantal. Et à vous aussi. Donc, on n'a jamais douté que si les personnes âgées se trouvaient au centre Aberdeen, qu'ils n'auraient pas des bons services et qu'ils auraient aussi le plaisir d'être là. C'est intéressant, Chantal. Je t'écoutais parler tantôt, puis je me disais, tous ceux qui étaient là dans les années 90, les artistes sont maintenant tous des personnes âgées dans les 80. Donc, on pourrait les amener eux aussi pour rejoindre les aînés. Je peux vous dire que, connaissant Chantal et son groupe, les aînés sont en très bonnes mains. J'aime aussi l'idée que, comme vous avez mentionné, que les personnes de mon âge, là, qui sont capables d'être présents avec des jeunes, c'est tellement important. Certains, les petits-enfants sont déjà des adultes, donc on n'a plus ce plaisir-là. Donc ça, c'est important d'avoir ce contact. Vous faites beaucoup de physique, il y a aussi du mental avec tout ça, mais vous avez mentionné les mouvements, mais ma question est peut-être là pour le personnel, est-ce qu'on pourrait mettre un peu de focus aussi sur le théâtre? On a le théâtre Aberdeen, le théâtre d'Escaouette est à côté, donc parce que ça aussi, pour le cerveau, comment nous garder en santé, donc garder le cerveau actif, tout ça. Est-ce qu'il y a des possibilités de projets de ce côté-là aussi?
Mais je peux prendre la parole. C'est clair qu'on peut offrir un service. Là, je suis prof en art dramatique. Puis on a eu une proposition d'une personne que c'était Histoire contée, qui voulait faire les ateliers aux aînés. On a rencontré pour savoir comment ça s'organise. Le fait que les gens, c'est l'idée de la continuité. Puis l'engagement. Ça fait que si tu travailles sur un texte ou tu crées un texte, ben est-ce que les gens vont revenir ou pas revenir ou tout ça? Dans nos cours de mouvement, on a un cours de danse-thérapie, donc il y a de l'histoire dansée qui se fait, qui peut se chanter, qui peut se dire. On rentre dans une autre problématique. On a discuté, puis c'est comme, OK, ben est-ce que peut-être qu'on aurait un groupe d'années qui voudrait se compromettre à quelque chose de plus théâtral qui aurait un suivi au niveau du texte ou des apprentissages. C'est comme un défi, on va dire ça, quand ça arrive à cette forme d'art-là. C'est contrairement à, mettons, l'art visuel, ben, on pourrait avoir des gens qui font de la peinture, du dessin, puis on laisse les tableaux en chemin, puis ils viennent pas, mais on peut continuer, tu sais. Les idées sont bien ouvertes, puis il y a une compagnie de théâtre au centre culturel, puis c'est certain que Satellite Théâtre qu'on peut collaborer, il n'y a pas de limite dans ce qu'on pourrait faire vraiment.
Et merci d'avoir mentionné, Chantal, les arts visuels, parce que ça aussi, c'est très important. Donc, je ne sais pas où est-ce qu'on va aller avec tout ça, parce que là, on est en grande discussion à savoir qu'est-ce qu'on veut faire, mais je trouve que l'idée et je suis allée avec le conseiller Légère, d'ailleurs, pour rencontrer Chantal et les gens d'Aberdeen. Je trouve que c'est un lieu extraordinaire, mais est-ce que je ne sais pas comment est-ce qu'on peut faire ça dans le futur. Est-ce qu'on peut avoir un centre qui est dédié strictement aux personnes âgées et ils ont un lien avec le centre culturel Aberdeen pour des programmes? Donc, en tout cas, c'est d'essayer de trouver un moyen qui est gagnant-gagnant pour les personnes âgées qui veulent leur lieu à eux, mais aussi les sortir de là et les amener vers quelque chose qui peut les aider physiquement, mentalement et tout ça.
Je vous dirais que ça fait partie justement de la réflexion qui se passe en ce moment. Vous en avez fait allusion avec l'exercice de participation publique. Il y a aussi une proposition qui a été acheminée à la municipalité. Donc, d'ici quelques semaines, je vous dirais qu'on va vous revenir.
C'est beau. Merci. Merci à vous. Merci, Chantal.
Excellent. I think we can move on now, but don't leave. Restez ici, s'il vous plaît. Robert, it's your turn. Can you just press the button there? Yeah. Okay, you're good.
It's green. Thank you for inviting me. The Royal Canadian Legion has participated with the City of Moncton and with the seniors because the seniors asked me all kinds of questions in late 23, early 24. 2024 was very successful as far as having lots of exercises for seniors. I made a complete report to Helen.
We've seen it all.
You've seen it all?
Yep.
Good. Nobody has to be a member of the Legion, and there's never a cost or a charge to any seniors coming into our Legion. Except for one, the senior social. It's $2, and thanks to the exercise program, we've doubled where we have people coming in on crutches, wheelchairs, that can sit, listen to music, and they pay $2. It covers the cost of food. But that is a positive thing. We've gone from 345 attending 2024, and moving into 2025, we're at 438. Wow. So added is, I would care to say, is probably the seniors that came back from Ontario. They asked if they could have play cards on Wednesday night where the others are playing cards. We have 2 big rooms, and I said yes. So we have euchre for one room is euchre, one room is crib, and they're having a great time. A copy of the schedule is provided. Our Legion is probably booked for 90% of seniors 7 days a week now. Also, the seniors that have attended and have approached the Legion because they knew we do a lot of community service, such as with cadets, with all the schools, 21 schools. We do homeless veterans, and we also do homeless people, and we have we take care of 16 low rental apartments. Having said that, some have decided to volunteer because they want to help in the community, which is a plus. So in 2025, on Monday, from 9 o'clock till 10:30 is senior exercise class. That is open to whoever wants to have it. At 10:30 to noon is senior exercise classes. On Tuesday at 9 o'clock till 10:30 is a new class, seniors beginners exercise class, which will start supposedly tomorrow morning. At 11 o'clock till noon is the senior exercise class, and from from 6 to 9, the seniors line dancing. There's 3 separate classes. They each for about an hour. If you don't make it into the first class, you work in the second class. So we're in one room going into another room. On Wednesday, senior exercise class is open for the morning. We have a seniors exercise class from 10:30 to 12. From 12 till noon is senior line dancing. From 1 p.m. is seniors card 200 that come in and spend the afternoon playing cards. In the evening, we have 2 groups now. One, they play crib, and the other group, they're usually around 25 to 30, but it depends when the checks come in. On Thursday, we have seniors beginning classes and seniors exercise class. If there's a holiday or something happens, Friday will replace whatever's missed. So quite often we have a stat holiday on Monday, they come in on Friday. On one Thursday a month, we have the Veterans Unit, usually around 20 to 25 in wheelchairs that come over with some of their family, and we give them a meal. And the ladies' exercise class said, we'll go to Friday, which is a plus. So basically, that's what we're doing, that's what's scheduled. Also available, we have pool, we have shuffleboard, we have senior social, we have darts. That doesn't involve paying anything. You come in and you tell them you want to play. The only cost that I found anywhere within the Legion on seniors is they all chip in to have a Christmas party, and they all chip in to have something Valentine's, and we decorate for them. And whenever they have that, there's no charge for them to come in and have a good time. So, not a lot of change, except it's more popular, and I'm open for questions.
Terrific, thank you. Councillor Bourgeois.
Merci beaucoup, Madame la maire. Merci, M. Dupuis. Français, English?
Les deux.
Les deux. J'avais deux questions, vous en avez répondu une, si vous chargez ou pas. Là. La deuxième question, c'est, vous avez identifié qu'il y a un manque à gagner de 7 000 entre ce que ça vous coûte et ce que la Ville vous donne, si je comprends bien. On vous donne 77 000 à nous. Les citoyens de Moncton, à travers du Conseil, vous donnent 77 000 pour ce site, mais ça vous coûte 84 000. Est-ce que j'ai bien compris?
On a engagé un gars plein temps qui aide les aînés. Il est là à 7 heures le matin, nettoyer, préparer, leur aider pour le setup parce qu'il y a l'équipement. On sert leurs équipements là-dedans. On est obligé de faire une place pour faire ça. Tous les détails que j'ai pris pour 5 000 piastres par mois, c'était comparé à prendre 365 jours, divisé par 24, comment ça nous coûtait par heure. Un employé travaille 5 jours, j'ai engagé un autre employé qui travaille 2 jours.
Je comprends ça, mais vous l'aviez envoyé dans un document auparavant, là, j'avais vu ça aussi. Là.
Oh oui.
Mais est-ce que vous êtes en train de nous demander pour 84 000 ou vous êtes en train de nous dire que 77 000 ça fera? Ou?
Oui, 77 000, c'est ça qu'on a eu l'année passée, c'était
Oui.
pour 11 mois.
Oui.
Ça fait, si c'est ça qui est présenté pour cette année, moi je suis OK avec ça.
OK, c'est ça que je voulais
Ça
savoir.
nous coûte environ ça.
OK. On est, comme le conseiller Thériault a dit, en pleine période de réflexion. Là. Ça fait comme 1 an qu'on est en réflexion. Là. Mais on va aboutir avec, est-ce que oui ou non on veut un centre unique? Est-ce qu'on a une programmation et des activités un petit peu partout à travers la ville? Est-ce que c'est les deux? Qu'est-ce que ça va coûter? Quel va être l'investissement? On n'a pas fini notre réflexion de là-dessus. Là. Ça doit s'en venir avant longtemps. Là.
Oui.
Ça fait... Moi, j'ai l'impression que je suis fier de vous dire, de vous entendre dire que le 77 000, ça fera pour cette année, mais c'est possible qu'on ait d'autres discussions avec vous autres dans le futur, une fois qu'on ait une meilleure idée de qu'est-ce que c'est que le Conseil de ville veut faire avec la programmation d'un bout à l'autre de la ville là, pour les années. Ça fait, je vous remercie d'avance pour votre patience, mais stay tuned. Là.
Stay tuned.
Merci, Madame la maire.
Councillor Butler.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thanks for your presentation, Bob, especially from the Legion. One of the things that people have asked me, and I know the answer, but I thought maybe you could give it, is that to go to the Legion, you don't have to be a member. You don't have to buy a membership. Is that correct?
You don't have to buy a membership. We have some pool teams and some of the crib players, if they want to compete provincially and nationally with the throughout the Legions, they have to be a member in order to play as members. I would say that probably 75% of all our activities are non-members.
Yes.
Though we do have a large membership of 400 and some members of our Legion, but a lot of them is because their family had veterans in the family. They want to be a member of the family, of our Legion.
But also too is that there is a large population in Moncton that have family-related or soldiers or veterans themselves, right?
Well, the veterans themselves, if you look across Canada, the per capita for veterans within the provinces, Nova Scotia is number 1, and province of New Brunswick is number 2. It doesn't mean we have the more, but per capita, we're the second highest in Canada for family members.
And the other thing that it's with you, with the Legion, and I've been up there a number of times, is that the parking is terrific too. It's a flat parking lot. You have wheelchair accessible.
We have, everything is one level. Your wheelchairs can go from the parking lot to the main floor, to the bathrooms. We had disability bathrooms. They're cleaned daily, every morning at 7 o'clock. Caretaker's in there, cleans. They're cleaned daily. If any of the seniors need assistance, there's somebody there to help them. We have a video monitoring of all the rooms in our Legion and outside for their protection. Some of the comments said, we feel safe going there, and we're not far from other places we can go to.
Yeah, and that was my next question, is that geographically, it's very close to, I know a lot of the seniors go and play pickleball.
Yep.
And also they go to the Y for swimming. So
Yes.
it's all in pretty well walking distance, especially from the Y and from Curl Moncton. Do you know if many use all three?
I've heard comments, but I don't have figures of who
Yeah.
use all three.
Yeah, no, I've heard the same thing, yeah. And the other thing that you spoke about that I like, because whenever I talk to seniors, one of the things that they want to do is have a place to just go sit, have a cup of tea, a cup of coffee, a sandwich, maybe play some cards. So we do have that for them at the Legion.
I have tea, coffee, and water. Mind you, most of the people that do exercises have only asked for water. It's available, they don't have to buy it. There's a big fridge in that main room. Grab one. It's there available to them, and that was part of my presentation. The other thing is that once a month or so, the exercise classes get together and they decide to have a little luncheon after. And the ladies auxiliary don't charge very much, stay over and they talk over things and discuss where they're going next, and it's positive. I've had a lot of good positive from the ones that are attending, are happy to be there, and I guess the most complaints I've had is, I hope we don't have to leave.
Yeah, and I guess there's a pretty good crew that like to go dancing in the afternoon, so any of us that are seniors, if you want to go dancing, it's in the afternoon.
You're all invited to come and have a look what goes on Sunday afternoon, and you wonder how come they're so active.
Thank you, Bob, appreciate it. Thank you, Your Worship.
Councillor Legier.
Yeah, thank you, Bob. I just wanted to try to clarify then, in my mind, so you're indicating that to run the program the way you're running it is costing you $84,000?
It pretty well costs about $7,000 a month is what I'm doing.
Okay, and so we haven't given you enough then to be able to run the program if you're running a loss. I mean, the whole goal was to give you the amount of money needed to be able to do, at least in my mind, would be neutral. So is it something we should consider, giving you the additional $6,000 or $7,000?
It would be something to consider, yes.
Okay.
As you know, we're a nonprofit.
Right.
We don't show profit. We try to keep above board. We've managed to do that. We're probably one of the only legions that are quite active for seniors 7 days a week.
So if we did that, let's say that we gave you the additional 7, are there, perhaps, could you work with staff? There may be programs available through other levels of government to help with obtaining funding or partial funding, for example, for the employee that you have. And so I guess what I'm saying is we could give you the additional, depending on what council wants to do, the additional $7,000 so that you're neutral, but also working with staff to see, what options are available in terms of of trying to obtain those funds, and that would help you on a more long-term basis as well.
My agenda is to meet up with the new provincial government representative. Claire Johnson is in our area. I haven't gone there yet.
Okay.
And it's the Legion is in her riding, and see what's available.
Okay.
I know that I have a parking lot that we patched it and patched it and patched it, and we have to do something one of these days.
Okay. All right. All right. Well, thank you very much. And I know we separated the questions. Can I ask dans encore une question?
Oh oui, bien sûr. Oui.
Yeah.
Next.
Dans votre situation, au niveau de ce que vous avez de disponible comme événement et disons, tous vos cours et ces choses-là, est-ce que ce qu'on vous donne, la subvention de 57 000, vous permet, par exemple, d'arriver à que ça satisfait vos besoins?
Oui, nous autres, ça fonctionne. Je pense, peut-être Chantal est plus placée, mais on avait budgété en fonction de ce qu'on offre.
OK.
Fait on a modifié on a ajouté un cours de yoga sur chaise, mais on se dit, on va juste comme faire un peu moins d'activités sociales organisées qu'il faut rémunérer quelqu'un pour payer le cours qui a été ajouté les mardis. On a comme chevauché des fonds pour rentrer encore dans le budget qu'on avait présenté. So, je pense que c'est pas mal ça.
On a réorganisé aussi un peu, parce que je disais tantôt, la gestion des inscriptions, le roulement était plus important au bureau. Ça fait que là, on s'est ajusté, mais on peut y arriver tant qu'on aura une entente avec l'Escouade. Et puis, on considère peut-être avoir une entente avec le centre culturel. Bernard Leblanc qui serait intéressé où est-ce qu'on pourrait offrir 1 ou 2 leçons par semaine avec un plus grand nombre pour à ce moment-là, c'est des espaces additionnels à locatifs et entretien. Fait que là, si ça se développe, ben peut-être que là, on aurait besoin, mais pour tout de suite, ça va très bien. Nous, on engage des professionnels de la santé et de l'activité physique. So, beaucoup de notre subvention va à payer les instructeurs.
Ah, OK.
Parce que c'est tous des professionnels du mouvement de la santé, des artistes professionnels qui font ceci. Puis, comme Vanessa McGraw, elle est masseuse thérapeutique enregistrée et une professeure de danse attitrée. Donc, beaucoup va pour le personnel.
OK. All right. Et comme ça va aussi vous permettre de travailler avec le personnel pour le futur, pour voir à quoi ça ressemble. Puis,
mais ça donne un coup de main à l'ensemble des opérations, parce que vous savez que les productions de Danse Encore, c'est une compagnie de création et de diffusion et de formation. Donc, on organise aussi un festival. Fait que tous ces morceaux-là aident à la compagnie à rester vivante. Puis moi, je suis sur un plan de succession maintenant. Je veux faire de la place pour les jeunes à venir. Puis mon conseil d'administration a toujours dit, il faut 3 personnes pour remplacer Chantal. Alors donc, je suis en ligne pour ça. Puis les contributions des partenaires sont essentielles pour qu'on ait un plein gâteau pour tout le monde.
OK, parfait. Ben, merci pour le bon travail. Thank you.
Councillor Richard.
Merci, Madame la maire. Juste une note pour le public que le sondage Let's Chat ou Jason Moncton, ça finit le 10 février. Il y a aussi des copies papier qui peuvent être remplies à la bibliothèque de Moncton, 644 Remain. Il y a eu des séances en personne qu'on finit le 24, qu'on finit vendredi. Puis aussi, ils peuvent parvenir un courriel à l'adresse jason@moncton.ca ou letschatmoncton.ca. Merci.
Councillor Bourgeois.
Je proposerai la recommandation.
Excellent. Et est-ce qu'il y a quelqu'un? Councillor Richard. Any questions? Councillor Legier.
Well, I'm just wondering if we could make that adjustment, and I guess I'd maybe propose that we increase it from 77 to 84 to at least bring it in line with their expenses for this year, and then allow staff to work with them. So I'd probably make an amendment to raise the amount from 77,000 for the Legion to the 84,000.
Could it be a friendly amendment? Do the mover
Yeah,
and seconder
are they
agree?
with that?
So that it's fully compensated for the full year? I'm just asking, if it's a big debate, we can go to the,
Well, when I asked my question earlier to both about funding, if they can make arrangements, I also told Monsieur Dupuis that stay tuned, because we're in the middle of thinking about this. Maybe it'll take a month or 2 months, but then we'll have a full picture, and I have no concerns about increasing it, but we're doing it blindly, and I think we should wait for the full picture. So
okay.
my concerns.
Councillor Richard, did you want to continue to keep that amendment on the floor?
I guess the proposal is funding for the year. It's not a proposal for next couple of months. So I know that we're going to revisit it. I mean, hang on. The funds we paid, second here. Is that not funding for the whole year?
Monica, can you
And so if it's
provide some
funding-
clarity? Like, what was your
We're
thought
not
in
going,
this?
yeah, because we're not going to have, regardless of what the decision is on the St. George Boulevard, that's not going to be helpful to anything until the end of the year. So I thought the understanding was we would give some assurance of this funding for the whole year, and then we can make adjustments, but I guess that's what I was thinking.
Yeah, exactly. It was meant for, we knew that going into 2025, we have a bit of research and things that we want to work on. We wanted to make sure that we weren't waiting and not providing services for seniors. So really, this was really to cover the 2025 gap that we would still have. Honestly, if we take away the two groups out of the equation, we would have a gap in recreation for seniors, so we didn't want that to happen for 2025. So it was a little bit of a, let's continue for 2025 until we figure out what we're gonna do, because regardless of what, even though some of the steps might be implemented in 2025, it's gonna take time regardless of the decision made, right?
So with that, I mean,
Yeah,
I
so
would
with that-
move, I would move the amendment that we
Okay, is there a
increase it
seconder
to
for the
84,000.
Councillor Steves. I'm just curious, Monica, like, why would you not have put it in if it was for the full year? I'm just out of curiosity, because it is clearly denoted in the CRF that it's only for 11 months, really, for their costs.
It was a motion made at budget. I really
Oh, okay.
didn't.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Okay, fair enough.
Sorry.
Fair enough. I'd forgotten that little bit. Okay, so the amendment has been moved and seconded.
And in a sense, the amendment then gives another month.
Yeah, basically, for the entire year.
Full year.
Okay. So the amendment has been moved and seconded. Councillor Richard.
So can I hear the amendment? What,
The amendment is just to add up to a total of $84,000 so that they have full funding for the entire year for the Legion. That's the only change at this time.
thank you.
Councillor Butler.
Yeah, I guess when it was at budget when I made the motion regards to this, and it was, at the time, we talked about waiting to get what we were going to, the numbers we were getting back from the Legion anyway. It wasn't, we didn't have the exact numbers at the time, so what we did was try to figure out what we give them last year that would hold them to at least October, November. So it was always in the budget that we would give them that extra anyway. So
Okay.
it's no
Awesome.
Anyway, thanks.
So, on the amendment, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Oh, darn. Okay. So, the amendment has been moved and seconded. So, okay. Sorry. Old habits die hard. Can we go to the original? Okay, we'll go through this whole tedious process. Oh, I need a mover. Don't touch anything yet. Who moved the original motion? Council.
Legier, no, sorry, Bourgeois and Richard.
Richard. Okay. Councillor Bourgeois, could you please move this? Councillor Richard, second it. I don't think we have any mechanism for amendments, though. We do? Oh, okay. Sorry, we have a new system.
As long as the... Nope, don't touch. Maybe it is.
Don't touch anything.
No, not to do the vote, but we can do...
Okay, so we have a mover and seconder for the amendment. So we need to vote on the amendment, and we will not be doing that online.
We can do that online, but just the vote, not... It'll just be the vote that we'll
So we
do
can
online.
vote on the
Yes.
amendment. Okay, so
Yes.
we did that, and it was unanimous? Yes. Why don't we just go now to the page to vote on the actual motion? The actual motion now. Okay. Please indicate on your screen,
Which is 80.
which is 84,000 by the passing of the amendment.
Good. There you go.
And motion passes unanimously, but I only saw 10 votes. There are 11 of us. Oh, Councillor Crossman is not here. Okay, then. Okay. I believe it's been moved past and everything is done now. Thank you very much. Thank you for both groups for stepping up and serving our senior community, and especially with your creativity to problem solve. We really, really appreciate it. Thank you. Moving on.
Yes. The next item is Westmoreland Sidewalk and Streetscape. And here to discuss this is Renee Lagacé.
Oh, sorry. You need to press the button. There you go.
Good afternoon, City Council. My first item today is regarding Westmoreland Street. As part of the 2025 Capital Works budget deliberations, City Council approved the project which would involve the street reconstruction of Westmoreland Street between Assumption Boulevard and Main Street. So the project will involve raising the street to proper elevation, providing some sewer renewals, sewer separation, and also a full reconstruction of the street. And if you recall, a few years prior to the 2025 Capital Works deliberations, this project was actually approved under the IBA fund, so the Integrated Bilateral Agreement between the federal government, the provincial government, and the municipal government. So in essence, we are paying 27% of the total cost of this project. Now, we could talk about water and sewer pipe renewal all day if you wish, but we thought that council would be more interested in the aesthetic aspect of the project. So we're really here to discuss the surfacing work. In essence, what we're trying to do here is get a final decision on what the street will look like. So we had a landscape architect come up with 3 options. The first option that you're seeing on your screen would be a concrete sidewalk. The travel lanes would remain asphalted, and there would be an amenity strip between the asphalt and the concrete that would be made of paver stones that would have, potentially some planters, benches, and just to kind of bring an aesthetic element to the street. And those paver stones that you see between the sidewalk and the street would be similar in nature to what we have today on Downing Street. So that is option number 1. Option number 2 essentially is the entire the entire sidewalk area would become paver streets. So again, the travel lanes would remain asphalt, but then all the pedestrian area would be paver stones, again, similar to what we have on Downing Street. So this is option number 2. And option number 3, as you can see on your screen is the entire surface would become paver stones, similar to the stones that are on Downing Street. So the travel lanes for the vehicles would be paver stones as well. This is just another angle closer to, you'll probably recognize the Provincial building to the right-hand side there. So we're closer to Assumption Boulevard. Just another look at option number 1. Again, concrete for the asphalt. Concrete for the sidewalk, asphalt for the street, and an amenity strip of paver stones. Option number 2, again, the entire sidewalk area made of paver stones. And option number 3, the entire street would become paver stone. So we had a lot of discussion internally, and we wanted to come here and obviously, propose one of these options. We have some concern with option number 3 that you're seeing on your screen here. I guess the first concern is that the intent with Westmoreland Street would always to be remain open to travel vehicles. In the event that we are closing, as you know, we close down street a lot for our events. The intent would also be to close the proposed east-west street that would be behind the Assumption building in the future. But the intent was always to keep Westmoreland open to through traffic for detour purposes. The other concern is that if you think about Westmoreland Street, the corridor, like the adjacent properties are not built to their full potential. There's a lot of parking lots. There's talks about potentially a redevelopment on the market site. So on the street like this, if we see redevelopment, it means we'll have to cut into these paver stones when we install water and sewer services and things like that for future development. It's not to say that this could not happen in the future, but we think timing-wise that it's not the proper timing to have this option. And if we can go back, maybe go back to option 1. Yep, that's perfect. Thank you. With option 1, that's a viable option, but we think probably we can do a bit better as far as the integration with the proposed east-west street, and that's the reason why we are proposing option 2 today. We think it's a good balance between the cost and the aesthetic value, and also we think it's a best fit for the corridor, the function of Westmoreland Street as it was intended to be. You'll notice in the council rec form that we also did mention Main Street as being something we want to look into. I think it goes without saying that the red brick that we're using on Main Street is not performing to the level that we expect it to be. It has a really, really short useful service life. So we'd like to come back to council with some streetscape design for Main Street in the near future. But again, back to Westmoreland as the focus. The recommendation here in front of you is for council to adopt option number 2, which is on your screen. And I am definitely open for questions.
Thank you. First up, I have Councillor Leger. Do you wish to move the recommendation? Then I have Councillor Richard. Did you wish to second it? Okay, so we could go to that page, please. Thank you. All right, back to you, Councillor Leger.
Yeah, thanks. It looks okay. I think what would be nice, though, is would there be any traffic calming features then, like elevated crossings and stuff, if you're going to make this because you really want it to be that connection, right? And it's going to remain open all the time, you were saying. So can those things be placed? I do prefer the stone look because it's more calming, right? And it slows cars down. However, if we're going to be cutting it up because of development, then that's not very, strategic. So could you put in some traffic calming that would make it such that people can't speed? They just, but yet it's attractive enough with the sidewalk and the vegetation that it will be planted again.
Thank you for the question, Conseiller Legere. It's something that we could look into. However, it wasn't planned in the original concept. When it comes to traffic calming or just the design of the street itself, one thing to consider is that the street is quite narrow to begin with. The entire street right-of-way is quite narrow. The travel lanes will be narrow. The fact that the sidewalk area would be paver stone kind of have that traffic calming effect to begin with. It's also somewhat of a short block, so we don't expect that by design and by nature we'd see some high speeds there. We're not seeing them now. So we could definitely look at it. It probably would not qualify, if I had a guess, it would not qualify if we look at our traffic calming policy today. But again, something we can look at. And maybe there's other softer measures that we can put in place just to deter people from speeding.
Yeah, especially the one in front of the market, because people cross the street, you know, and so it becomes, anyway, anyway, something to think about. And will the granite curbs be part of that design?
Engineering is actually recommending to move away from the granite curb that we're seeing on Main Street. A few reasons. We don't think it's a good cost benefit. You look at granite curb, it would be probably 3-4 times the cost of concrete, and most of that material is buried underground. We're only kind of seeing the edge of it that's kind of sticking out. And also, it doesn't provide the same quality of drainage that we see for concrete curb. What happens with the granite slabs or the granite curb is that they're all sections, and if they tend to settle over time, so then it doesn't provide the proper drainage. As for concrete, which is kind of poured in place with a curb machine, then you really get that good grading in your gutters and a formed gutter as well.
The only thing, though, is over time, the plows beat them and break them and chip them, and unless we're redoing a street, they just remain like that, and they remain chipped, and they look horrible compared to other cities that have granite. And granite doesn't seem to. I'm not very familiar with granite that is uneven, but probably maybe that does occur. But I am very familiar with the fact that the granite doesn't go anywhere. It's probably, maybe there's a cost to the equipment. I don't know if that's something to consider, that it's maybe more difficult on the equipment, but just the concrete is, to me, it over a couple years will look horrible. And so what would be the plan? Would we be maintaining that, or is it just we do it once and then we have to put up with chipped curbs and so on?
Yeah, as far as concrete curb, we're not seeing the deterioration right away, like and maybe Alexandre can attest to that, but our plow operators are, instructed to just kind of set back a bit from the curbs. They do get chipped, of course. We're a municipality that's got to live with winter and all its impact. Yes, they get chipped, but I think that's just kind of the cost of doing business. If they get chipped to a point where they're broken off, there's material out there that can be applied for patching that curb up. And it gets to a point where it's so bad that we need to replace it. But a brand new street, we're rarely there within 10 to 20 years to replace curb when we do a full reconstruction project.
I'm just wondering the long-term analysis of it. Even though it's 4 times more expensive, will it be in the long run cheaper for us to do it that way versus and aesthetically what it can look like in terms of its resilience? It would be nice to have that comparison. Just so
we would, for that comparison, we would definitely have the cost aspect of it. We can have some data on that. As far as the long-term maintenance, that's a bit of a stretch to get that data. It would be kind of really difficult, to be honest with you, to put some numbers to that.
But we have Main Street that has it now, right?
Correct.
And so, I mean, how long have those been there, and how long, and take a look at their condition? And we've reconstructed that street a few times, I think, because I seem to remember we had some asphalt thing done and stuff. So anyway, just think about that. I mean, from an optics perspective, visually, it remains shiny or longer. Thank you, though. I appreciate the showing us this, and yeah, I think it's good.
Thank you.
Councillor Richard.
Merci, Madame la Maire. Thanks for the presentation, René. I really hope that what you're talking about, the paver stone sidewalk, is not anything close to what we have on Main Street now. And I mean, the first thing that I'm thinking of is people in wheelchairs. Like, they're doing some off-road riding there when they're on Main. So I really hope that it's not going to be something similar to what we have there.
Yeah, thank you for your concern, Conseiller Richard. So the paver stones that are proposed here on Westmoreland would be similar to what you see on Downing Street today. So it's a different type of paver stone, more durable, and again, we want to bring some of that concept to Main Street as we're looking at renewing sections of Main Street sidewalk as well in the future. That will be like for another discussion for another day, but
It would all match up.
yes, it would, yes.
Have you ever thought of stamped concrete?
Thank you for the question. That's a great question. What we've experienced with stamped concrete, and it's limited here in the city, but also in discussions with other municipalities, is that when you stamp concrete, you're actually putting pressure on the surface. And concrete is made up essentially of gravels, cement, and water. And as you're pushing your stamp on the surface of your concrete, your gravels actually kind of migrate to the bottom, which leaves that surface more like vulnerable because it doesn't have the granular structure to it. All that to say that with the products that we have to apply in the winter, salt, sand, it chips away more easily at that surface. So we're seeing with stamped concrete, what we're seeing in our climate is faster degradation of the surface, as opposed to a paver stone where there's no, once you bring it to the site, there's no alteration to the material. It's placed there and it's made to withstand our climate. So that's our concern with stamped concrete as far as applying it in our climate.
Okay, so, and on the street that we already have it on, we don't have any issues so far. I mean, it's been there for a number of years already.
The stamped concrete we use as a trial.
Sorry, not the paver stones that we have already.
Downing?
Downing,
Yes. So on Downing Street, I think this project is now over 12 years. I'm just guessing here. It's got to be 10 plus years. Essentially, what you're seeing as degradation is really from our snow clearing event. As far as the material itself goes, we didn't see any natural degradation of the surface. You do see some scratches on it, definitely from snow clearing operations.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, that's great. Okay, merci beaucoup.
Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Thériault.
Merci, Madame la maire. Merci beaucoup, René, pour la présentation. Tu as mentionné que c'était surtout le volet esthétique. Donc, combien d'arbres on va planter?
Merci pour la question, conseiller Thériault. C'est un défi parce qu'on a une emprise de route très étroite. Donc, emprise de route veut dire le terrain que la ville appartient. Déjà, les voies véhiculaires sont au minimum qu'on peut aborder pour le trafic et qu'il nous reste vraiment pas beaucoup d'espace pour le trottoir et puis pour tout ce qui est sur le côté de la route. Donc, en consultation avec nos équipes de parc, on sait que les arbres de rue ont besoin d'un certain espace pour survivre. Qu'est-ce qu'on est en train d'explorer tout de suite? C'est, en anglais, ça s'appelle des tree cells. Donc, ça serait un dispositif qui va sous le trottoir, mais qui aide à alimenter l'arbre en eau. Parce qu'on sait que ça va être un très gros défi de faire survivre des arbres d'assez grand diamètre, à grande dimension, vu le manque d'espace. Donc, on ne promet rien. On essaie de regarder à certains endroits. Il y a certains endroits sur la rue Westmoreland où, disons, il y a un élargissement de voies. Ça crée des petits espaces un peu plus larges pour les arbres. Donc, on essaie de regarder pour ça. Mais on n'a pas un nombre spécifique d'arbres parce que, encore là, il faut regarder à qu'est-ce qu'on peut faire dans cet espace restreint.
Je pense que c'est tellement important d'avoir des arbres. C'est important pour la santé des gens. Donc, surtout l'été, on ne peut pas marcher à Moncton l'été, c'est trop chaud et ça devient de plus en plus chaud. Donc, c'est une raison très importante de s'assurer que les arbres sont là. Je vois des villes et Portland, Maine, par exemple. Je sais qu'on parle beaucoup aussi des produits que vous utilisez, là, pour faire la route, le trottoir. Mais qu'est-ce qu'ils font à la Ville de Québec? C'est le même climat qu'ici. Portland, Maine, c'est à peu près le même climat. Donc, comment comment est-ce qu'ils préservent des arbres, comment est-ce qu'ils plantent des arbres, comment est-ce que les rues puissent être préservées, même s'ils sont faites je sais pas trop, là, en asphalte. Ou je m'excuse, je connais pas trop les produits là, que vous mentionnez.
Pas de problème. C'est sûr qu'on peut aller, on va toujours chercher les leçons apprises des autres villes, s'il y a d'autres produits. Et comme je le disais, là, on est en train d'explorer avec ces dispositifs, les tree cells que j'appelle, qui est justement quelque chose qui peut être mis sous le trottoir, mais que l'eau peut éventuellement s'infiltrer de la rue, peut essayer à alimenter ces arbres-là. Mais comme je le disais, spécifiquement pour la rue Westmoreland, le défi, c'est que l'endroit pour les arbres est très, très restreint. Si on prenait l'endroit nécessaire pour un arbre pour qu'il fleurisse puis qu'il pousse vraiment grand, mais là, on a un conflit entre le trottoir et l'arbre. Donc, c'est un peu là où ce qu'on doit jouer. Hein? C'est-à-dire que nous, on a des standards quand même lorsque ça vient à la largeur des trottoirs. Puis avec le design, la conception qu'on a déjà là, c'est au minimum de la largeur. C'est encore là. Si on essaye de mettre un arbre plus gros, mais on ne peut pas le mettre dans le milieu du chemin. On ne peut pas non plus le mettre dans le milieu du trottoir. Fait qu'est-ce que l'architecte a proposé? Si vous allez, au retour sur les diapositives, vous allez voir qu'il y a des petits endroits où il y a de la verdure qui a été installée, mais ce n'est pas des gros arbres. C'est un peu comme des tall grass qu'on appelle. Puis les municipalités utilisent beaucoup ça dans des endroits où, justement, on ne peut pas aller chercher un tronc d'arbre significatif. Mais c'est un effort, en quelque sorte, d'aller mettre de la verdure dans les endroits qui sont étroites.
Mais mon collègue a posé la question comment ralentir le trafic. Donc, peut-être que c'est avec les arbres que vous allez ralentir le trafic. Je pense qu'il faut trouver des manières novateurs pour faire les choses. Donc, puis, on se plaint souvent qu'on a trop de voitures. Et je remarquais, quelqu'un m'expliquait que Portland, Maine est presque la même grandeur que la ville de Moncton, mais le centre-ville a l'air très dense parce que, justement, on a trouvé des moyens. Donc, peut-être il y a moins de trafic, il y a moins de voitures. Les rues sont un peu comme celles de la ville de Québec. Donc, puis, je pense qu'il faut peut-être aussi, je ne sais pas comment dire ça, là, mais c'est comme, on veut que tout soit parfait. Alors, si vous voyagez, puis vous allez dans d'autres endroits, les trottoirs sont pas parfaits, même pas à Paris. Donc, je pense qu'il faut cesser de vouloir avoir tout parfait, mais plutôt concentrer sur la richesse de ce qui est recyclé, de ce qui est vieux aussi. Donc, en tout cas, juste une suggestion.
Merci.
Merci. Merci beaucoup.
Elaine, did you have something to add?
Thank you, Your Worship. It's actually in regards to Conseiller Richard's earlier question. I just wanted to add a bit of information what René was saying in regards to Downing so that the pavers will be similar, so a bit larger, more durable. And also on Downing, there is a concrete slab underneath the pavers, and we do intend to design these sidewalks also including a concrete slab underneath, which means that there's less chance of heaving in the bricks ranging in height. So I just wanted to add that information.
And I just looked online, and it was 2016, June of 2016, when Downing, you were almost right on. Is there anyone who's not spoken on this topic who wishes to speak? I'll go back to you, Councillor Leger.
Just quickly, so although these look really nice, do we have feedback from ability organizations who, have memberships in wheelchairs and have difficulty walking and so on, to get their opinion on what this should look like? I know we often get complaints about our sidewalks from people in wheelchairs related to, maneuverability and snow clearing and so on. So maybe I missed it, but are they at the table that say, yes, this is what they want? And so, or...
That's a great question, Councillor Leger, and if it's not already been done, we can reach out to the Accessibility Committee, which, works in tandem with the City of Moncton on these issues, and definitely echo the concerns on the red brick Main Street layout.
And it would be interesting to get their feedback on what they thought of Downing since 2016. I don't get any negative feedback, really, truly, but I don't know. I mean, but perhaps someone in a wheelchair might see things differently, or someone with a cane. I know that I often get the comment, although, you know, maybe there's less and less high heels or a different type of footwear, but, you know, I hear often that, you know, people lose their heels and so on in our sidewalks, and they might look pretty on Main Street, but they're not very functional, and they're uneven.
Yes.
And so that's the nice thing about Downing, is it did what we were promised in 2016, which was that if we went with that surface with the concrete, that everything would stay stable, and it seems to have done that. So I was hoping that if it's okay with under the ability umbrella, that, you know what, these are acceptable, that could be what we move towards when we redo Main Street. And then hopefully we keep the curb to the granite curb.
What I would propose is when we bring the discussion back to council for the Main Street streetscape, that we have that discussion beforehand with the accessibility committee and bring all the comments back to council.
And lastly, a real good communication to residents of what it is we're doing, why we're doing it, and then the comparison to Downing, because otherwise people look at it and say, well, why are you putting bricks again? They're all broken up, they heave, but we're not doing the same thing anymore. But visually, you wouldn't necessarily know the dynamics behind the construction itself. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor LeBlanc.
Oui. Donc, l'asphalte, ça attire le soleil et la chaleur. Comme il ne va pas avoir beaucoup de verdure dans ce coin-là, ça serait pas mieux de mettre, au lieu de l'asphalte, mettre les roches? Ou est-ce que j'ai compris que vous avez dit, madame, qu'il y avait une composante qui pourrait peut-être faire que ça ne sera pas trop chaud l'été au soleil?
C'est une très bonne question, conseillère Leblanc. Je crois qu'il y a peut-être une petite différence entre l'asphalte et le béton ou même le paver stone qu'on propose en termes d'absorption de chaleur. Quoique je ne crois pas que ça devrait être le facteur déterminant dans notre décision. Encore là, nous, notre décision était plus posée sur deux choses. Le fait que Westmoreland a toujours été vu comme étant ouverte à la circulation pendant les événements pour un point de vue de détour. Puis aussi l'aspect, j'ai dit que le corridor n'est pas vraiment bâti à son plein potentiel avec tous les bâtiments sur le côté. Donc c'est une considération, mais je ne crois pas qu'il y ait une très très grande différence d'absorption de chaleur entre les deux matériaux. Je crois que la grosse différence vient en termes d'un matériel, que ce soit l'asphalte ou le béton, comparativement à du gazon ou quelque chose de plus naturel. Là, on commence à avoir un gros impact entre les deux. Et c'est sûr que créer de l'ombrage, ce serait, l'approche la plus déterminante. Faut considérer qu'on s'attend que le corridor Westmoreland va être développé, puis avec les bâtiments, on espère déjà les bâtiments vont créer de l'ombrage, mais c'est là, dans ces développements-là, qu'on pourrait peut-être avoir plus de potentiel à avoir des arbres ou des endroits avec de l'ombrage, peut-être juste adjacent à la route, donc sur le terrain privé, parce qu'encore là, nous, sur l'emprise de la route, on est vraiment, vraiment restreint.
Merci.
Merci.
All right, I don't see any other questions. I think we can move to the vote. And I think that's it for who we have here. 9 votes, passes unanimously. Thank you.
The next item is...
Thank you, Renee.
Thank you.
He's not moving.
Actually, drink of water if I could.
No water for you.
The next item, when Renee comes back, is traffic calming update.
Welcome back.
All right. Well, if it didn't show, I was excited for the first item, but I'm even more excited about this second item, which is to provide you an update on our traffic calming policy and program. I'd just like to acknowledge the great work that staff's been doing. John Nason is here. He's been doing a lot of the data collection in the background. José Vautour, who's been doing over 100 analysis when it comes to traffic calming, and Radia for her leadership and always her expertise in traffic calming. It's much appreciated, so thank you, team. Presentation in 3 parts. We'd like to talk about the results from our 2024 traffic calming program, which was really our pilot year. It was the first year we did some true measures. We want to propose to you or show you what we're planning for 2025 when it comes to the traffic calming program. And we also are proposing some changes to the policy, and that is just us going through the motion and doing all these analysis. We kind of find few things that we'd like to tweak in the policy. So just a summary of what happened in 2024. We had some traffic measures on Ryan Road, Twin Oaks, Lonsdale, Purdy, and Pleasant Avenue. And we also had some crosswalk treatment, and I'm seeing they're not showing on this map. Sorry? Tap on the screen? Oh, look at that. Thank you. A few crosswalk treatments on St. George and Shediac Road. Nope. There you go. Perfect. So some of the pictures of what these look like, we have our speed cushions that were installed on a few of these streets on the top left corner. To the right, top right, we have a raised crosswalk. We had a few of those on Twin Oaks and one in Ryan. Bottom left, we had one raised intersection installed on Purdy Avenue. And the bottom right corner shows the crosswalk treatments, which is essentially some bollards that are installed that are installed 3 seasons and then removed in the winter, and kind of provides that kind of choking effect, lane narrowing effect. Some of the feedback, again, this was our first year doing it, so we haven't had a lot of really snowstorm events to really test them out. So we haven't had any positive or negative feedback from our operations crew so far. We did, however, notice that there's already some wear and tear on the deflectors or the vertical speed humps or speed cushions, and also some deterioration on the pavement markings that are not even a year old. And that's expected when you have plows trying to clear snow and they have, around these speed cushions or speed bumps. Definitely some great feedback as well from our emergency services. We want to make sure in the future that we do not install speed humps or speed bumps close to intersections, because if a fire truck is turning, if the fire truck hits it on an angle, that could be quite dangerous. So we had that feedback that we want to make sure they're kind of offset a certain distance from the intersections. We want to make sure we have proper spacing between the bollards. This goes back to active transportation, but if you think about the bollards that are installed along Killam Drive, we want to make sure they're spaced well enough for people that can pull over if they have to. Let's say there's an emergency and they have to get out of the travel lane. And we also want to make sure that the slopes on our vertical deflectors, so our speed humps or speed cushions, are the right slopes. If they're too steep, it provides a safety concern. If they're not steep enough, then it's not serving its function as a traffic calming measure. Just some of the pictures. So you'll see the speed cushion on the top left side. And after a few passes, you already see some scratches on the bottom left there. That's the same location. So again, that's to be expected. We'll see some scratches. We'll see some deterioration on the asphalt a bit, and also on the pavement markings. Really excited to talk about the results. We did some speed studies before these measures were installed and after the measures were installed. So what you're seeing on your screen there is the green bars is the speeds prior to, and orange the speed after. What you're looking at here is the 85th percentile speed, which means that 85% of the vehicles are traveling at that speed or lower. You can think about it as the average speed. And so if you look at Purdy, Pleasant, and Lonsdale, we're looking at about a 10 kilometer an hour reduction in that 85 percentile speed, which, for us, it's a success. You look at those 3 streets, and 85% of the drivers are driving below 50 kilometers an hour, which is the posted speed. Again, 85% are driving below that posted speed, which is great, phenomenal, really, when you think about it. Twin Oaks, we didn't see the same impact, the same level of impact. We think because Twin Oaks is quite a long stretch, and so these measures were spaced out compared to Pleasant, Purdy, and Lonsdale. So we think that may have had an impact on not seeing that, that drastic results in reduction of speed. Moving on to the proposed 2025 capital program, this is where we all get excited, where we're proposing to do some traffic calming measures. We have Rennick Road, section of Bessborough Avenue, Church Street, section of Drummond Street, section of Erin Vale, and Camelot Drive. So kind of stretch around the city. And again, just a reminder, these are based on data, a warrant system that was approved by council, a policy that was approved by council, and so it's kind of putting science behind our decision making. We're also proposing a lot more of these crosswalk treatment measures mainly on busy arterial roads. So we want to add 3 on Salisbury Road, add a couple more on Shediac to the ones that are already there, one on Millennium Boulevard, and also another one on St. George to complement the ones that are already there. So what you could expect to see next summer is a combination of measures, some that are similar that were installed last year, but you'll probably also see more of the traditional speed hump that you see on your picture, which is, again, traditional speed hump that doesn't have the brake in the middle, such as we do with the speed cushion. We like it because we think it's a great measure, and also it doesn't impact drainage. It doesn't go right up to the curb. It stays short of the curb, so you're not into putting some new catch basins. So that's what we figured. That's what one of the lessons learned is whenever we put a measure that affects drainage, the cost goes up, almost doubles. For instance, like a raised intersection where we have to put more drainage basins because we are impacting drainage, it definitely goes up. So we think we can stretch our budget more by using measures such as the speed humps or the speed cushions as well that do not impact drainage. And the last part is about the policy. So we have to admit we're becoming somewhat some experts in these. We have over 100 street segments that were analyzed. And through the matrix, through the warrant analysis, we just found a few things that we think needs to be changed to adapt to our reality. I'm not going to go through all the minor changes in the policy. Those are attached in the council report form. But just want to highlight a few ones. First of all, obviously, when you think about traffic calming, one of the main decision criteria is speed, average speeds or 85 percentile speed on your streets. And what we realize is that our current policy does not consider school zones. So as you know, there's certain school zones where a certain time of day, the traffic, the posted speed goes from 50 kilometers to 30 kilometers an hour. And again, our current policy doesn't allow for that. So we want to make sure this is captured because 45 kilometers an hour speed is great on a posted speed limit of 50, but 45 kilometers is not so great if you're in a school zone during those hours and you're supposed to go 30 or lower. So that's just one change we want to do. We also noticed something when it came to our busy roads, our arterial roads, such as Mountain Road and Shediac, because one of the decision criteria in our policy is traffic volume. Okay, so the higher traffic volume you have on the street, the higher you can score in the matrix. So obviously what we saw is all our St. George Boulevard of the world, our Mountain Road and Shediac would all score higher than the local streets because by nature they have a lot of traffic. So we made some adjustment in the policy just to make sure that like all the streets are kind of being on the same level playing field, basically, because we know that the primary function of some of these roads, the busy roads, are to have higher traffic. So again, just to kind of tweak things so that the priority makes more sense for us. And the last one I wanted to talk about is the pedestrian generators. We have some points for streets that have a lot of pedestrian generators, such as schools or restaurants or community areas, things like that, commercial areas. But there wasn't any kind of rhyme and reason. It was basically a maximum point of 15. And so a lot of streets were getting that 15 points automatically. So what we're proposing here, and it's one of the biggest changes, I guess, in our policy, is come up with a little matrix that you see here on your table that looks at not only the type of pedestrian generator, but also how close it is to the street that's being analyzed. So you'll see here the top category schools. We have another category for other types of institutions such as daycare, and another category for all the other pedestrian generators. And again, you score more points depending on the category, but also you score more points if you're abutting the street, within 250 meters of the street, or within 500 meters of the street. Again, just putting a bit more science numbers to the warrant system. And again, that's all part of us crunching a lot of numbers, doing a lot of analysis, and really a sensitivity analysis at the end. And another change that we want to bring to the policy is we're analyzing a lot of streets that are, well, all the streets that are proposed for resurfacing or reconstruction in the future. If we're rebuilding a street and there's a speed cushion or speed hump to be put, now is the time to do it because of the cost saving. We already have a contractor on site and all of that good stuff. And so what we'd like to do is there's certain street, if you recall the policy, it's a point system, and to qualify, you have to meet 30 points. We ran into some situation where some streets were scoring like 28 or 29 points, and the street was up for renewal the following year. So in those situations, we made an engineering judgment that we'd want to add the traffic calming measures now, in recognition for, well, a couple of things. One, we'll be there next year doing some work, so again, cost saving there. But also, when you look at the criteria, one of them being traffic, there's certain areas, certain street we're looking at that we know there's going to be growth. So we know in a couple of years from now, they're probably going to reach that level of traffic. So again, there's some engineering judgment that's happening there. And what we want to do is have a bit of flexibility when it comes to street that are due for renewal in our capital works projects. And so the recommendation that is in front of you is to adopt the proposed changes to the policy. And I am open to any questions.
Terrific. Thank you, Rennie. Councillor Kingston, did you wish to move this recommendation?
I have a question.
Thank you. So you do?
Yes.
Wish to move it? Is there a seconder for it? Councillor Richard, I just ask that you go to the voting page and indicate that. Terrific. Thank you. Go ahead, Councillor Kingston.
Merci. Thank you to any of these exciting changes for all of us who live in this great city. And I know the folks on Camelot are going to be pleased because they had a legitimate concern during construction season of the truck traffic speed and whatnot. And you got Warner in there in Bavaria. It's quite an expanded section as it eventually will connect to Harrisville by the hotel. Is Church Street, and I can't see it on the map, are we talking Mountain Road down to the overpass? That's the quick section that's been identified, correct?
Correct, Councilor Kingston. This is from Mountain Road to the Wheeler overpass.
And the seasonal posts are just fantastic. I know how traffic really slowed down when they were put in because of fear of obviously hitting them, but it really made a difference on Shediac Road. I'm off Macaulay, so that area is certainly laden with traffic, and great to see that earlier section coming up from McBuns to Scott Vista. So just fantastic work, and it's going to be a great 25. Thank you. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you. And I'd just like to add to that we did not have the data for the post and the pre and post speed for those specific crosswalk locations, but that is something we want to do as well to see how effective those specific locations are.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you. Merci. Thank you, Madame Mares.
Thank you. Councillor Edgett.
Thank you, Your Worship. I would like to know, based on the wonderful program that you've put in place here, I was wondering where Morton Avenue would sit in the plans for calming. between University and McLaughlin?
Thank you for the question, Conseillère Régette. That's something I will have to bring back to the team and see if if Morton's part of the 100 segments that we've done. Just knowing the street, there's probably some high speeds there already, and probably an area that could benefit from some measures, such as the crosswalk treatment measures. So that's a good candidate to look at, and we can definitely come back to you via a separate email.
I think it would certainly apply where it's near an educational institution, for one. And I'm wondering how you actually get information on accidents. You mentioned that that's part of the factors, I think, if I understood correctly, that you use to determine this. How do you get that information? Is it just by word of mouth, or?
No, it's working in collaboration with our partners at the RCMP.
Okay.
So we've established how we get that data transferred to the city, what we're looking for information, and we've made some great progress there as well.
Okay. And so is that current information, or does it go back several years?
What we do in the policy is look for 3 years. 3 years. So it's basically looking at 3 years of data. We also look at the type of collision, whether it's with a vulnerable user or not, and whether it was an injury or more serious.
I noticed you also in some of the requirements involved threats to pedestrians or whatever. I think I read that. I think there is a big danger on this street because there has been 2 major accidents there where both cases the cars flipped over the sidewalk, so they were actually upside down, destroying telephone poles and fences. So going right through the sidewalk area. So those, I think, are concerns that should be addressed with the program that you have. And because I don't think there's any infrastructure being planned for Morton Avenue per se.
No, you're correct.
So this would be an addition to. Is that correct?
That's correct. We do have, I guess the next big plan for Morton Avenue is the active transportation component of it.
Okay.
That's being in the works through a different angle. But when you look at our decision criteria and the matrix, you look at speeds, traffic volume, pedestrian generators, U to M, right? So I'm fairly confident it would score quite high. So I'll go back to the team and kind of look where it sits and see what the next step is for Morton Avenue.
Just from going there quite regularly, I would imagine that the speeds are between 60 and 70.
I would not disagree with that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Bourgeois.
Merci beaucoup, Madame la maire. Merci, René. Je dois m'excuser parce que j'ai manqué la plupart de votre présentation. J'avais un rendez-vous médical. 3 questions. Si vous les avez abordées, pardonnez-moi, mais répétez.
Pas de problème.
Est-ce qu'on a des codes ou des normes standards nationaux, comme qu'on a, par exemple, la construction, on a un code national du bâtiment. Est-ce qu'on a un code national de circulation qui vous aiderait à prendre des décisions?
Oui, donc merci pour la question, conseiller Bourgeois. Donc, lorsque ça vient à la circulation, au niveau de la conception des routes et toutes ces choses-là, il y a l'Association du transport du Canada, l'ATC, ou en anglais le TAC, qu'on utilise souvent. Oui. Ça peut être, ça engendre aussi, c'est un best practice, OK? Donc, c'est pas vraiment la Bible, mais la plupart des municipalités canadiennes suivent ces guides-là, ces normes-là, si vous voulez. Ça régit aussi des guides par rapport à la signalisation, donc les feux de signalisation, les enseignes et tout ça. Lorsque ça vient aux mesures d'atténuation de vitesse, donc au niveau du traffic calming, il y a quand même des recommandations de l'ATC, mais là, on s'est fié beaucoup à notre consultant qui nous ont fait vraiment une revue de qu'est-ce que les autres municipalités font. Donc, je dirais qu'il y a un peu plus de flexibilité lorsque ça vient aux mesures d'atténuation de vitesse, puis c'est vraiment pas one size fits all, c'est vraiment regarder à chaque tronçon puis qu'est-ce qui marche mieux.
Oui, puis j'allais soulever un exemple, pas de mon quartier, mais Harper Lane, par exemple. C'est une sorte de petite ruelle avec les poteaux d'électricité en plein milieu du chemin, quasiment. Là, ça fait, là on s'adapte, on n'a pas de code national pour quelque chose comme ça non plus. Ça fait ce que vous avez fait, après un an de test, vous faites d'autres recommandations. C'est possible que l'année prochaine, on arrive avec d'autres recommandations au tweaking, etc. aussi?
Oui, bonne question. Ça pourrait l'être. Là, comme que je l'ai dit, on a fait à peu près 100 revues là, de sections de rue. Puis là, on a vraiment découvert des petites choses qu'on voulait changer. Le but ne serait pas de changer la politique à tous les années. On espère on va aboutir à un standard dont on est vraiment confortable. On va peut-être rencontrer des situations différentes dans le futur, puis il faudra peut-être revenir au conseil pour s'adapter. Mais juste avec un peu de flexibilité, puis je l'avais parlé du engineering judgment aussi, lorsque ça vient à des rues qui sont près de la cote minimale de 30, ça nous apporte un peu de flexibilité à savoir, oui, on devrait faire des mesures d'atténuation de vitesse parce qu'on sait qu'il y a du développement qui s'en vient, des choses comme ça. C'est une autre façon d'être flexible aussi.
Oui. Et justement, cette flexibilité-là, ça m'amène à ma prochaine question. Certaines rues, puis j'aime beaucoup le troisième bulle, là, ce qu'on essaye de peut-être être flexible avec les vitesses, là, que c'est pas automatiquement 50 partout, mais dans certaines régions avec les écoles, 30 puis 40, etc. Est-ce que, dans votre réflexion, vous avez considéré des rues qui sont employées comme shortcut? C'est-à-dire, toutes les rues dans telle ou telle région, ça va. Mais il y a certaines rues que les gens vont prendre pour se rendre de boulevard A à boulevard B, là. Puis que là, oups, ils vont pas respecter les vitesses parce que ça devient pour eux une façon la plus rapide d'aller de A à B plutôt que de passer à travers de C, là.
Très bonne question. Dans ces cas-là, s'il y a des excès de vitesse, ça va être capté dans l'analyse normale parce que les vitesses sont vraiment un des critères primaires, disons, de la décision. On a déjà été demandé dans le passé, le département d'ingénierie, d'évaluer des rues parce que les citoyens croyaient que c'était vu comme justement des shortcuts, des raccourcis. Le défi avec cette analyse-là, c'est bien sûr de suivre les véhicules où ça devient vraiment difficile à ce niveau-là. Fait nous autres, on veut vraiment se concentrer sur les vitesses mêmes. Si les gens prennent des détours, ou on peut l'appeler des détours, on peut l'appeler des raccourcis, mais que les vitesses sont rencontrées, pour nous, on ne voit pas de problème parce que c'est vu comme c'est un réseau routier, puis c'est le réseau à tout le monde.
OK. Et j'ai l'impression que vous avez besoin de la collaboration de la police aussi, jusqu'à un certain point, pour... si on a des rapportages, moi j'en ai, je vous les fais parvenir. Il y a beaucoup de vitesse, c'est la Bessborough, par exemple. Comment on fait pour approcher la police pour qu'ils fassent des je sais pas ça, là, mais ils concentreraient pendant une semaine pour donner une bunch d'infractions pour signaler à tout le monde, oups, OK, on va corriger notre comportement, là.
En termes de vitesse, conseiller Bourgeois?
Oui, surtout.
Oui, donc on a, lorsque ça vient à des vitesses excessives, lorsqu'on fait nos collectes de données, si on voit des vitesses excessives, on envoie l'information à la GRC, puis on leur demande ou on leur propose. C'est à eux de décider s'ils vont faire un enforcement blitz, ce qu'ils appellent, puis ils l'ont déjà fait dans le passé, où ils vont cibler des endroits, parce que là, ils utilisent les données à des bonnes fins. Des fois même, parce que nos données, c'est sur 24 heures, ça peut être une période de 3-4 jours. On va voir s'il y a des excès de vitesse, disons, récurrentes à une telle heure, des petites heures du matin. Ça peut être encore quelque chose qui est ciblé. Puis je voulais juste rajouter qu'au niveau des raccourcis, des détours, tout ça, ce qu'on peut regarder aussi les volumes, c'est-à-dire que lorsqu'on a mis les mesures d'atténuation de vitesse sur ces rues-là, on a regardé aussi le volume avant et après. On était curieux de savoir si les gens allaient éviter ces rues-là. Parce que là, maintenant, il y avait des mesures en place. Puis on n'a pas vu vraiment de différence flagrante dans les résultats du volume de trafic. Donc, je ne crois pas que ça fait changer trop l'habitude des gens non plus en point de vue d'éviter ces rues-là.
Excellent. Il y a deux plaintes principales que j'entends. C'est la vitesse et l'autre, c'est que les gens roulent à travers des arrêts. Autre chose qui roule à 100%, mais ce qu'on appelle le rolling stop.
Un rolling stop, oui.
Dans les quartiers résidentiels. Là, ça fait... En tout cas, j'ai l'impression que la GRC est aussi informée de ces infractions-là.
Oui.
Ma dernière question, merci. Est-ce qu'on mesure les résultats? Comme ici, c'est un petit peu comme un projet pilote, puis là, on va continuer à faire d'autres modifications au fur et à mesure, mais j'essaie d'imaginer que ce qu'on veut là, c'est la sécurité du public. On veut pas de mortalité, on veut pas d'accidents puisque les blessures sont très dangereuses. On veut pas qu'il y ait quelqu'un qui se fasse passer dessus sur un trottoir ou peu importe. Mais est-ce qu'on mesure le avant, puis là, on va mesurer l'après pour dire, il y a eu une diminution de 22% des accidents, des choses comme ça?
On a fait une mesure de la vitesse. Donc, si vous verrez dans une des diapos, il y a un diagramme qui montre les vitesses avant les mesures et après les mesures, c'est les rues Purdy, Lonsdale, Pleasant et Twin Oaks. Puis, qu'est-ce qu'on a remarqué? C'est une réduction d'environ 10 km à l'heure sur les rues Pleasant, Lonsdale et Purdy. Donc, ça, pour nous, c'est un succès parce que ça amène toutes ces vitesses-là en dessous les vitesses moyennes en dessous des limites de vitesse de 50 km à l'heure. Puis, sur la rue Twin Oaks, on a moins vu ça, puis on croit que c'est relié au fait que c'est une longue rue. Avec le même nombre de mesures, donc l'effet était peut-être pas aussi flagrant. Mais en termes de... Puis là, bien évidemment, en termes d'accidents et tout ça, mais ça, c'est des données qu'on va pouvoir recevoir aussi avec la GRC. Mais nous, pour l'instant, c'est savoir est-ce que ces mesures-là ont un impact sur la vitesse moyenne. Puis on a vu que ça l'a.
Oui, c'est ça qu'on contrôle, les affichages d'arrêt ou d'autres choses, puis les vitesses. Mais le but ultime, c'est de diminuer le nombre de mortalités. Je ne sais pas s'il y en a beaucoup, là, mais par rapport aux cyclistes, la même question se pose. Est-ce qu'on a moins en moins d'accidents, de blessures, de mortalité? C'est vraiment ça le but ultime de toute cette sécurité publique ici. On a mesuré 10% moins, etc. OK, c'est bien. Mais est-ce qu'il y a quand même eu des mortalités? Peut-être, même si on avait diminué, ça fait on est en train d'attaquer le symptôme et non pas le problème. Ça fait, est-ce qu'on a des données sur les accidents, puis y compris pour les cyclistes?
Oui, donc on a tous ces accidents-là, où les statistiques d'accidents sont partagées par la GRC. Par contre, les mesures qu'on a mises en place, c'est ça fait 1 an. On pourrait aller regarder les données même, mais je crois que je n'ai entendu parler s'il y avait eu un accident sur une de ces 3 ou 4 rues-là qu'on a fait des mesures d'atténuation. Donc, je pense que ça va prendre peut-être plus de temps à voir cet impact-là. Mais ce que j'aimerais ajouter, c'est qu'il y a beaucoup d'études dans le domaine du transport qui relient vitesse avec accident et aussi conséquences de l'accident. Puis vous allez lire des données qui disent si on réduit la vitesse de 10 km à l'heure, votre chance de survie augmente de tant de pourcents, tout ça. C'est un peu ça qui est malgré qu'on n'a pas des données précises sur chaque rue à ce niveau-là, c'est un peu ça qui est le but général de ça, c'est si on réduit les vitesses sur les rues, on réduit non seulement le risque d'accident entre cyclistes, piétons et les véhicules, mais aussi les conséquences. Donc, c'est un peu ça qu'on veut acquérir.
C'est un modèle très logique.
Oui.
Mais ça ne veut pas nécessairement dire que l'impact final, qu'il y a eu moins de mortalité ou moins de blessures graves. Je crois qu'il faudrait faire un lien logique pour aboutir à l'objectif ultime, là, qui est réduire ces choses-là.
Oui.
On dirait qu'il manque un morceau là, à la fin. Là. Si c'est pas trop compliqué, puis si la GRC peut vous donner ces chiffres-là, ça vaudrait la peine de montrer. Là. On a diminué la vitesse, puis il y a eu moins d'impact négatif.
Oui, bien sûr, on peut regarder ça de ce que je me souviens. J'ai pas vu de données sur des accidents qui ont arrivé sur ces rues-là dernièrement, mais évidemment, on sait à quelle année qu'on les a installés, puis au fur et à mesure, on pourra voir ces données-là pour savoir, OK, il n'y a eu aucun accident ou il y a eu un accident comparativement à ce qu'il y avait dans le passé. Donc, c'est définitivement quelque chose qui va être intéressant à regarder dans le futur en termes de données, bien sûr.
OK. Et je vais finir avec un commentaire. Je sais qu'avec Radio, puis toi, moi, je vous traîne beaucoup là-dessus avec des plaintes de personnes, mais c'est des préoccupations, des plaintes. Ils ont le droit de se plaindre pour telle chose, puis je vous parle. Moi, je veux juste vous remercier pour le travail que vous faites. Je sais comment difficile que c'est d'essayer d'équilibrer les besoins des conducteurs, puis les besoins des piétons, puis les besoins de personnes qui circulent localement, puis se font intercepter ou passer un stop, ou des choses comme ça. Ça fait, je sais que l'équilibre n'est pas facile. Ça fait merci de votre dédication.
Merci à
Madame
vous.
Lamarre.
Puis je dirais que tanner, c'est pas le bon verbe. Vous ne tannez pas. Vous avez des préoccupations, puis les citoyens en ont, puis on est là pour les répondre. Donc, ça fait plaisir.
Merci. Merci, Madame le maire.
Councillor Butler.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thanks, Rennie, for the presentation. When you done these results, were they just in the summertime? Like you're talking about Purdy, Pleasant, Lonsdale? When we had students for the summer, is that when that was done?
All of them. Yeah, and the pre would have been June. Previous year. So the pre-installation data would have been the previous year, so 2023. And then the post-installation data would have been in the fall because these measures were installed in the summer. So we were looking at September-ish, October for the post data.
Yeah, I think, so it's really not, it wouldn't be up-to-date data, like, because what I'm looking at is Twin Oaks, for instance. We had put in the raised crosswalks, but we hadn't, if you remember, it was really late in the year when we finally got the painting lines on Twin Oaks. And I find since we put them lines on, that it's lowered the rate of speed again.
Before the lines or after the lines? Okay, yeah, we'll probably have to confirm that if the data was prior or after the line markings. But you're right, Councillor Butler, there was a delay between the speed humps and the actual line painting.
Yes. My next question is so I find when I use streets with the speed bumps, are they just all asphalt? So are they starting to lower with the traffic? Like I find like on Twin Oaks, the one in front of the Y, it doesn't seem to be as high now. Like is it compacting more?
Yes, the first part of your question, they are all asphalt. There's no other material in between them. And as far as the installation goes, you could probably see a bit of a settlement that would normally happen the first week, not something that would happen over time. Now, however, with the plows in a few years from now, we might see it kind of chip away, and it's something we may need to address. But once the asphalt kind of settle and stop its heating process, the shape you have there should remain relatively the same.
Okay. And my last question is, the ones with the gaps, like on Lonsdale, and there's a couple others around town, I find that the large half-ton trucks are kind of like
straddling them.
Straddling them?
Yes.
And also, I've in the fall, just before they put the motorcycles away, I just happened to turn on to Lonsdale, and there was two motorcycles ahead of me, and they just zing through them. Like, so they're not designed for motorcycles. So my last thing we'll say is, and my statement is that you can't fix stupid when it comes to driving. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that. I'd just like to add that we've noticed that too. We had those comments where larger vehicle straddle them. The intent was for emergency vehicle and our Kodiak buses to be able to pass without interruption. But that's why, as I mentioned in the presentation, you'll see more of the traditional speed hump that go basically from curb to curb, just based on that feedback.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Steves.
Thank you, Mayor Arnold. Renee and team, thank you for your important work. I can see this as being an anticipated, exciting event every year to find out what roads are going to be done. My question revolves around Rennick, and I've just got in my notes here, Ryan versus Rennick. I don't get a lot of complaints specific to Rennick. I get complaints about Ryan. And so I know that we did a little bit from the traffic circle to Northrop Fry on Ryan, having the speed hump there. But my plea here is the traffic circle on the way to Hildegard. and there's apartment buildings that have just gone up there, a lot of traffic, a lot of roads coming on to Ryan. And I don't know if that would be considered an arterial road. I don't know the specific wording on that, but it's certainly well used. So did Rennick beat out Ryan? Is Rennick the ultimate road? Did they win the prize this year? What went into Rennick?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you for the question, Councillor Steves. So Ryan Road is a collector road, so it's higher classification than a local street, but lower than an arterial, but it's definitely an important roadway. So would be Rennick, but probably lower volumes, as we understand, than Ryan. So Rennick did score high. It came from probably a couple of concerned residents, and so that's our policy. We have a concerned resident, and we started looking at the data. We crunched the number and it scored pretty high, so it made the cut this year. And for Ryan Street, Ryder just informed me that we did get a specific request from the RCMP to look at Ryan Road. So now that's part of our number crunching, and it will be part of the next maybe 20 or 30 streets that we're going to look at. So it's going to be considered for inclusion in our future renewal program.
Okay.
But our plate is full for 2025 when it comes to the candidates and the budget we have.
Yeah, I'm certainly not opposed to Rennick for sure, but it was just a surprise that it beat out Ryan. So I'm hearing that Ryan has made the playoffs, but Rennick takes home the title this year. Okay, thank you.
Terrific. I don't see any other questions on this topic. I think we can go to the vote. And it looks like it passed unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you,
very
Nancy.
much, Renee.
The next item is CMHC Housing Accelerator Fund Year 1 Report and Update, and Josh Davies is here to provide council that update.
And good afternoon, Your Worship and Council. Yeah, so it would have been just over a year ago that in 2023 November that we came forward with our contribution agreement and execution with CMHC. So following a report to CMHC, which was due in mid-December, we felt it was a good time to come to council and present some of the results of year 1 of the Housing Accelerator Fund. So the purpose of this presentation, not for any decisions, but purely for information purposes, is to provide you with an update on the Housing Accelerator Fund and our action plan, which includes a summary of housing data from the first year of HAF, and we'll end with a discussion and discuss our plan, for the second year of the Housing Accelerator Fund and our next steps. So as council is aware, the total amount of the Housing Accelerator Fund funding that was made to the city is about $15.6 million. Funding is made annually, subject to performance requirements. So I'm happy to say that after our first installment, I believe we did receive our second installment last week, on Monday last week. So we're well on our way, and the funding amount was in full. The city's action plan is and the use of our funds overall, it's been broken out over the next 4 years. It includes systemic initiatives, which I'll be getting into, our housing grant programs, which I'll be touching on, and some staffing as well. So the funding was very timely, and we were able to use it in a way that was going to solve some potential log jams for Moncton, and so far, so good, which I'll expand on here shortly. The Housing Accelerator Fund target, again, this is the commitment that the city made to CMHC as part of the actual signed document, is an overall housing supply target between 2024 and 2026 of around 2,500 housing units, which would average out to be about 843 units per year. So within that growth target, there are some additional targets that would need to be met, which include around 1,200 missing middle housing units. So that could include anything in the city's context from a 2-unit dwelling up to a 4-story development. 1,072 other multi-unit housing units, so anything that would be considered 5-story and above. and an overall target of 3% for affordable units, and which would be about a total of 75 over the course of the 2,529 units we've committed to. What we're using in terms of a definition of affordable housing is nonprofits. So where the nonprofit housing providers are sort of meeting our definition of affordable, as they are the ones like with their boots on the ground and really know the financial requirements of the clients that they're working with. And so just to provide, I guess, an overview of some of the things we're working on, there's a number of housing initiatives that are within our department, within other departments that either we are participating with or others taking the lead. So these would include, but are not limited to, substantial infrastructure investment, the Mountain Road and Worthington Avenue connection. I believe towards the end of the year, the roundabout itself has been completed and looks good, and we're excited to continue working with Shanex on their master plan. And we are very hopeful that we're getting close to a finished product that we could bring to you in terms of a rezoning and show the plan for that whole 85 acres beyond their campus. Other items include the streamlining of the zoning bylaw. So as council will recall, we did have a pretty extensive exercise in terms of reducing the number of conditional uses that we have in our zoning bylaw, again, into an attempt to streamline our permitting process. This would include the 4-unit as of right and accessory dwelling unit expansion amendments. And it's quite timely. So on Thursday night from 7 to 9 p.m. in the City Hall lobby, we'll be hosting our final public engagement session. To date, the support and the questions have been quite positive, and would encourage you to attend. It'll give you a bit of a snapshot in terms of what we're looking at in terms of our zoning regulations and our standards and the work that's been done to date. Last week, we did have a session with our developers and surveyors that are working in our new and emerging growth areas, and they were very receptive to what we were proposing, and a lot of the things that we are looking at in the Moncton context make sense to them, so I think they were going to be very supportive of what's being proposed. As part of our municipal plan review, we're looking at an inclusionary zoning and density bonus study. So quite timely with the municipal plan review, we were able to tack that on to that work because it will inform much of the potential zoning and structure that we're looking at from a housing perspective in our future development. E-permitting is one that we're carrying over the full 4 years of HAF, just to make sure that we're doing it in a way that is going to be very productive. So that one continues to move. The creation of new development charge areas, which I know council is familiar with in terms of the work we're doing there to open up new areas to develop. And then an efficient multi-use residential design. So it's quite interesting. CMHC is in the process of working on its housing catalog, which will be made available to the public to pick up a set of plans that are essentially rubber stamped by municipalities so long as they meet the code. We're going to be looking at one ourselves for up to 8 units in terms of infill design. So that project is getting underway with a RFP to be issued shortly. Amongst the other funded actions we have are a transit growth strategy through our colleagues at Kodiak Transpo, a surplus land strategy that we will hopefully be completing this year, hopefully getting started on that in the next month or so. A transit planner who will be helping out on that transit growth strategy on a contract position. Alex Forbes, our municipal plan coordinator that you've met, has been retained, I should say, through funding through HAF, a solicitor again through contract, and one of our development officers at our very busy front counter. So you can see how the funding, again, we're getting about $4 million a year, but how efficiently we're able to use those funds in order to kind of meet the needs that we're dealing with on a day-to-day basis while also looking forward. So the stats. It's important to note, I think that we had just come out through economic development with stats for the calendar year of January to December. The HAF reporting period is from the time we signed the agreement with CMHC to the 1-year mark. So in this case, we're looking at mid-November to mid-November 2023 to mid-November 2024. Our overall net increase, so that would include any housing and the demolitions afforded as well. So the demolitions would kind of count as a minus towards our total. We had a total of 904 housing units permitted, which include 564 of that missing middle category I referred to, 281 of others, so any 5-story and above in multi-unit, which would typically be somewhat of a I guess, a down year compared to some of our other projects. But as we mentioned in some other discussions, was that 2024 was a bit of a blueprint year for the city where we had a lot of big plans coming forward for approval to council. And so once council gives its approval, there is quite a bit of work, especially for these larger buildings, that need to be done in terms of studies and other like building permit documentation before they can come to apply. So we would anticipate that you'll see that number from 281 grow quite substantially, and council is more aware of some of those big projects in the downtown that we are very hopeful will be kicking off in 2025. And on an interesting note, we hit about half of our target in terms of affordable housing units. So again, we were looking at about 76 over the course of the 3 years. We're already at 38, and it is anticipated that we are going to see substantially more units coming on stream in 2025 based on the projects that the planning team are currently working with. So in terms of our grant programs, we have several, and then the CRF kind of touched on the number of units and the funds allocated. But in total, as a summary, we allocated 1.77 million of that total, around 8 million that we've had allocated for the course of half. But what's interesting is you'll see the units incentivized as 150, but the leverage that we've been able to generate, especially in the downtown and in our growth areas, is about 387. So that we're almost getting about two times and some more units through this program. And I would argue that it's been very successful with more plans on the way. So we're aware of other projects that are basically on the edge of submitting their permits, and that will qualify. So we'll be able to add to this again. So and by the time we get to December 25, we'll be doing another version of this table, and I think you'll see that even more funds will be allocated based on the projects that we expect to come through the door. And of interest, actually, I think it would be an interesting point as well, is that in terms of the accessory dwelling unit grant program, we historically probably have had not a lot of permits that have come through the door. And in year one of half, we used all 30 applications that we had envisioned for that program. So that's the program where someone looking to add an additional unit, whether through new construction or through renovation, up to $10,000 would be made available, and every single application was allocated in year one, which is a bit of a problem because it's capped, but it's a good problem to have to show the sort of the success of the program and the potential that it has. So in terms of looking ahead to year two, the initial permit data and forecasted development, again, as I mentioned, it suggests strong continued residential development. As part of our year two work, our HAF administration will continue to work on its action plan, including our grant programs. And I'd have to give a shout out to our team working with finance, economic development, and social inclusion. My colleague Arish Dami has done a really great job keeping me on track in terms of the applications that are coming through the door and making sure that the committee is able to meet as soon as those applications come through the door in order to get them approved and get them in the queue. So a lot of hard work being done there, and certainly things are moving in the right direction. The undertaking of the surplus land strategy, continued investment in infrastructure, and as I mentioned, more work on the zoning bylaw to continue our work in reducing barriers to housing and increasing the capacity of the city's overall housing supply. So that would conclude my presentation, and I would be happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Josh. And you mentioned Arish's work. Perhaps you'd introduce your other new colleague who's on week two.
Absolutely. So yeah, you're lucky enough to sit next to the mayor on our bus tour last week. So Christopher Hardy has come to join us as a senior planner in the policy shop. So you'll be getting to see him, in the coming weeks and months as he gets involved in some of these files, and he'll be up speaking to you on some of the exciting stuff that we're working on. And I think he's excited to be here. And I'd say he probably had one of the more interesting first weeks as it comes to planning, because he's dive right in. So and we're really lucky to have him. So yeah.
Great. Councillor Bourgeois, go ahead.
Merci beaucoup, Madame la Maire. Merci beaucoup, Josh. Could you expand a little bit on, I guess, the final comment that you make in the council report form? Based on current housing trends, permit data, and forecast growth, it is anticipated that the city will likely exceed its overall housing supply growth target that is agreed to. Could you remind us what that target is and what percentage we've achieved or surpassed?
Yeah, so in the total amount is about 2,500 and change units over the 3-year half course. We're 36% of the way there now. And knowing some of the projects, so for example, the Gateway Towers is pretty close to coming in. We're hoping, for example, at the Botsford project, some of those big unit projects are going to be coming through the door. And a lot of the master planned areas that council would have looked at last year, for example, on McLaughlin, some of those bigger files that have come through, now that the kind of the work, the roads are getting built, the permits are going to start coming through the door. So we're already 36% of the way there. And again, so for us, a big building in the downtown would accumulate a big percentage. Like, so if we have a 150 unit building, that's just over 7 to 8% just in itself to hit our target. And we're confident, again, through some of the projects in our new and emerging growth areas, we're starting to see some of those 2-3-story apartments that are coming on stream as well. So I think based on our projections and the files that we're aware of in the planning department, we'll be probably in a position, we'll be above and beyond that 2,500. Yeah.
Thank you. I'm going to ask you a question that I've been asking Mr. Siliker for many years. How do we know that this program made a difference? I remember the downtown development, I don't remember what it's called, but subsidy as well. And I've only talked to about maybe 4 developers where I've asked the question. And if my memory serves me correctly, 2 told me that it wouldn't have made a difference. They would have gone ahead anyways, but they're not going to spit on free money coming from the city. But the other 2 said that, yeah, that was sort of like the drop that, the straw that broke the camel's back, but it's a negative, you know, it made the difference. So
yeah, kind of push them over the line.
Do we survey the developers to say, you know, they're not going to say, no, stop the program because they benefit from it, but they have comments on it?
Yeah, I think we've had a lot of questions around, especially in some of our suburban areas where development charges either do or don't apply. So, for example, in the north end, we don't have much in terms of development charges that developers can tap into. So, to your point, they're kind of continuing on, and they wish that they were able to be included. But in the east end, for example, there's a lot of housing coming through, and they're paying their development charges and then receiving their grants. So, I think that they would say that it's really helping them get a lot of their more units on stream, knowing that the funding is available there for them. I think you'll find too amongst the nonprofits, it's been very successful. We've come through, as council is aware, in amending our policy. So I believe Sister Cormier was here last week for Housing for Life. I think at that level, those have made some substantial benefits. In addition to that, a lot of developers as well would be very, I guess, have been happy to hear around the conditional use changing to permitted uses. So, for example, towns and row houses, every single one would have had to have gone through a planning advisory committee meeting previously. Now, those types of buildings can just go through permit as long as they meet the standards. Small apartment buildings, again, so some of those infill lots. So, for example, Sister Cormier may have had a minor variance, but no need to go through a planning advisory committee meeting for affordable housing that can sometimes get off the tracks. I think you'll see a massive benefit in terms of some of the systemic things we're able to do as well. So by investing in infrastructure, for example, the Shanex lands will be able to take off, and that will represent a substantial amount of the residential development we're going to see within the city. So I think it's ticked a lot of boxes. I think in year 1, it's kind of hard to say beyond the grant programs what the difference makers were. But I think in 5 to 10 years, some of those systemic things will start to take hold. And I think it will have been immense value to the city. Yeah.
Thank you very much. I have one more question, but it is directed to our city solicitor. This is the second time that Josh, Mr. Davis, has mentioned Shanex. And one member of council is employed by Shanex. I don't think that there is any pecuniary interest to be gained, but whenever we discuss Shanex, does that put the councillor in a conflict of interest position? There's no decision to be made here, so I would suspect that it'd be no, but can you advise us?
Thank you, Your Worship, through to Councillor Bourgeois. When there's no decision being made, there's typically not a conflict situation. In other cases, it's up to the elected official to make their own decision. It's not really for me to say that person is in conflict or not. I can advise on what the legislation says about conflict of interest, but I can't advise individual elected officials whether or not they're in conflict.
Okay, thank you. Merci, Madame la maire.
Councillor Richard.
Merci, Madame la maire. Thanks for the update, Josh. Thank you to the team. He mentioned to keep him in line, so.
Keep me in line, yeah, that's
You,
right, that's right, yeah.
Good job. In the other funded actions, you mentioned transit growth strategy, Kodiak Transpo. Can you just elaborate a little bit on that?
Yeah, so I guess a lot of this half stuff came through very good timing because we were just getting through our urban growth strategy as well. So the transit growth strategy is an opportunity for Kodiak Transpo to look at their current state in terms of their service, but also looking forward to where they might go in conjunction with the urban growth strategy. So as council is aware, we've identified several emerging growth areas through the growth strategy that have unit targets and sort of the infrastructure needed in terms of what's going to be required to go into these areas. We're working with Kodiak Transit. They'll be applying their sort of transit lens to say, okay, well, if we're growing by 16,000 housing units, 34,000 residents, what does that mean for transit? And if we're going to look at potential new, whether it's new routes or more infrastructure required over the course of the growth strategy in that 25 years, it helps them sort of plan for the future and helps them be a little more proactive versus being, not to say they're reactive, but it allows them to kind of do some forward planning. And there also will be a transit planner that may be looking at some of our files that we're working on in planning as a part of a development review process and say, I would like to have bus laybys here in some of these new and emerging areas. So the Vision Lands, for example, what does that world look like if there was to be like a transit sort of station and a hub? How would we go about doing that? And a lot of that future planning on the transit side while working within the growth strategy and some of those projections that we've identified through the growth strategy.
That's great details.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah, and I think their consultant is just starting to get going, so I would expect they may come to a similar presentation at Committee of the Whole and provide a bit of an update on what they're doing and kind of have that sort of similar type presentation for your guys' review.
So Kodiak Transpo kind of strikes me because I'm also on the board for Ability Transit. And thank you to Greg for being there with us at times. So I wasn't sure if there was anything is there anything here to help Ability Transit as well, or because they work hand in hand with Kodiak Transpo. So.
Yeah, I would say we can reach out to Angela and just advise that if they would be consultate as a sort of a potentially affected party by this transit strategy, how they may be able to engage with them and sort of have those conversations. So we can easily just let Angela know, and she's probably on top of it already. So.
Oh, I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that as much as their ridership is growing, Ability
Absolutely.
as well. So.
Absolutely,
Right.
yeah.
Thank you. Merci beaucoup.
Well, thank you, Josh and team. I don't see any other questions. There was no decision for council, but really appreciate this update with lots more to come in this after this blueprint year is over, right?
That's right, yeah. And on Thursday night, I think you'll find the information session in the lobby to be very informative.
Okay.
It starts at 7, and it will be Jim Scott and I will be leading the presentation. So,
Excellent. Thank you.
thank you.
I think that concludes today's agenda. I would take a motion to adjourn. Thank you, Councillor Richard.